Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the City of Palm Coast City Council Budget Workshop. Today is Tuesday, August 25th, 2026. It's 9 a.m. We're in the John Netz Community Wing of City Hall. I'm calling this meeting to order. If you have any devices, please silence them at this time. And please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance and a short moment of silence.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Miss Allison, if you could call the roll, please.
Mayor Norris.
Here.
Vice Mayor Pontieri.
Present.
Councilmember Gambaro.
Here.
Councilmember Miller.
Here.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you, ma'am. We're going to begin today's proceedings with public participation, item D. If you have any public comments concerning items not on the agenda, please come forward at this time. Yes, ma'am.
Liz Esposito. I'm just coming here again as a lifelong skater advocating for a concrete skate park. The kids are back in school and unable to come, and many of their parents also work and have obligations. But as you know, the kids and their parents and other skaters have come to countless meetings and asked, and told you about the strong need there is for the concrete skate park. And sent countless emails, myself included. And the park also has a lot of backing. Again, there's 725 signatures just on the change.org petition for it. And I know that it is currently in the CIP budget, but I know also in prior years it was in the CIP budget and then was, removed for some reason. So I'm just here to beg again and stress the need that there is for this concrete park. And if you could just please keep at least that $300,000 that is in the proposed budget in there for us, that would be greatly appreciated, and it would be a great asset to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Good morning. Forrest Salmons, retired Navy veteran. I'm also here to advocate for the concrete skate park that's in the budget. I have also been a skater for most of my life. Most of my family also, I have 3 children and my wife who also skates as well, and just wanted to advocate for it. Part of the reason we moved here is because of the things to do in the community, and that's one of them I would love to see. I interact with a lot of the kids and people in the community and stuff through skating, and just wanted to come in and support that and ask you guys to keep that on the budget for us. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Jeannie Duarte. The skate park should have been an easy fix by now, but the main things are the plain things, and the plain things are the main things. Let's follow the blue. I provided you some information. If we follow the blue, we'll see here, when it comes to the vacancy of any council seat within the first 2 years, the office shall be filled within the first 30 days, which was changed to 90 days. Such appointment shall last till the next regularly scheduled election, and an election held for the remaining 2 years of the term. How does an appointed seat from a vacancy that was 79 days before the 2024 election still sit today? Explain to me how that happens. Why is this important? Why am I beating a dead horse, would you say? Because these 3 charter amendments that are now on the city website. The first 2 are frivolous and cause more ambiguity to our charter. The third is the Amendment 3. Conveniently, it's Amendment 3, similar to the State Amendment 3, but this one is totally different. This one is like the 2024 ballot that we said no to. Now you're trying to change Provision 3E, which has the same outcome. It will reduce the vote of the election, of the electors, and so on. So if you don't understand it by now, and we have two attorneys on the dais, and you guys have to be hand-fed this information on one paragraph, section by section, bit by bit. These two seats are unlawful. There's another word for unlawful. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir, Mr. Stansel. Hadn't seen you in a while, sir. Hope you're doing well.
Oh, had knee surgery, been out of town, seeing grandkids. I understand what I'm going to speak on has been brought up before, but I was out of town, and as you know, Ray Stevens is a personal friend of mine, beat me by 2 votes in the primary 2 years ago. But the city's watching about what's happening. You know, he's elected, according to the state of Florida, he's the elected person for District 3. He won't even be on the ballot. And, you know, the city charter doesn't have a gray area. It's black and white. Appointees, the vacancies, their term is till the next election, which was last week. Reference Mr. Sullivan should be thanked for volunteering and for his service, and he should step down. And Mr. Stevens probably should be here this morning to be sworn into his seat that the state of Florida recognizes. You know, you could say, well, that wasn't the real election. Well, you know, if Mr. Sullivan had been elected to his position, then he would have the right to stay until November when the new person takes over. But that's not the case. That's not the way the charter's written, and that's not the way the state of Florida sees it. And I think the city council needs to do the honorable thing. And Mr. Mayor, you need to stand up and take charge of the city council and do the honorable thing and put Mr. Stevens in his seat immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes, sir, Mr. Kunis.
Gary Kunis, C-section. The last meeting you had when Mayor Norris asked the question about the calls you got from the court, from the attorney, Carmento, the answers you gave were very strange. They were all the same, like you rehearsed it. How many laws did you violate rehearsing that? The only one that had a slight alter from the same answers was Gambaro. He said, whatever you said. You can't be trusted. None of you 4 can be trusted at all. You got your own agendas, you got your own thing you want to do, and that's it. You know, and you two don't belong up there, and you know it. Okay. Last Monday, driving home from shopping, and then it was Ralph, the truck driver, garbage truck driver in C-section. So I went in to see him. I says, he's still here, Ralph. He says, yeah, I'm running late. They gave me the section to do. I said, well, you want me to get you some water, whatever, because I always give him water on every days when I see him. He said, no, we'll let it go. So I went down one of the roads, turned around, came back, went home. A little while later, there's a sheriff knocking at the door. I said, well, let him in. Well, it turned out to be a woman. She's standing there laughing. I said, what's the deal? She says, I'm serving you a trespass warning. Serving me a trespass warning? For what? She says, did you go down Cottonton Road today? I said, I turned down one of the roads. I have no idea because I'm not familiar with that. You know anybody in that section? No. Did you turn around in anybody's driveway? Nope. I went to the end, turned around and left. Well, apparently, Ms. Ponteri thinks I trespassed on her residential street because she issued this ridiculous waste of time for the sheriff's notice that I trespassed on her street. Now, what is that? Are you that insecure? Huh? You sit there, you don't look, pay attention. You know exactly what I'm saying. You have your own thing. You're not a leader. You're an opportunist. You use every chance you can get to push something. And everything that Danko said in Facebook is correct. All of it. You push your own little thing. You push You claim you reduced the taxes. You didn't reduce the taxes. You were trying to push through the franchise fee, so we pay more taxes. You were trying to push through Alphen's amendment to get them $90 million. And your thing of going to Flagler County, you want to press $120 million stadium that we don't need. And you're going to press the franchise fee. You don't belong up there at all, and you know it.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, sir, Mr. Amaral.
Good morning, Tony Amaral, Palm Coast. Last Wednesday, we had a special meeting here about a lawsuit. First, I find it a little disheartening that the actual sales contract was not part of the packet. It did give us time, the public, to look at it and to understand what you guys were voting on and seeing. But after getting that packet, but it's already too late because we've already signed it, there are several concerns I have with that contract. Number one, the time frame. Number two, are we going to get the full entitlements, because we have been taken when it comes to Track 17 by purchasing lands and not getting the full entitlements. Are there third parties involved? That needs to be clarified also during this contract. Another thing is too, we're on a strict deadline. We're given $1 million non-refundable to a contract that wasn't even made public during your meeting. The fact that we have to discuss this almost a week later is disheartening, because you're putting us on the line. We need to get a bond to pay for this. It's going to affect our budget for the next 3 to 5 years, if not more. And it just, we have to do better on these information. That we need to get this information out to the public, because we expect you guys to have the information and to be voting on, but it would give us, the people who do want to know, what's going on. The entitlements is definitely one of the concerns, the amount, and the fact that if we do not get the money in time, the seller has the right to raise the cost, because it's in the contract, if he brings it back to you. And then if all this goes through and we don't have to worry about it, and we finally understand why and we did it, and we understand why we do the $17 million for the land that's here in Town Center, there's no provision that says that if we are in a bind, that they just can't come back and buy it back from us for pennies on the dollar. That they can't make an offer 5 years from now, if we don't get rid of it, that says, hey, we'll give you $8 million for it. So the negotiation started at contract, not after. I want to keep in mind, because we do have this problem where we do not negotiate very well. We negotiate at the fact or at the time before it comes before you, with very little concern of what the consequences can be. So I would like that for future. And then more importantly, do we have any policies and procedures that are put in place at the city that will prevent this from happening again later on? Or are we going to repeat this over and over again? And if we do have the policy and procedures put in place, have you all read it? Because people on this dais are part of the issue that we have with some of these lawsuits. We can't go around just saying things. We can't just make false accusations. So A, make sure we do have policy and procedures. B, anybody on any council should make sure they read it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, sir. Step up to the podium, please.
Good morning. My name is Oscar Chelico. I presently live in Palm Coast. I am working on a home in Espanola, and I have just been told that Palm Coast wants to incorporate Espanola. Now, this is a business meeting, so I would like to know what the benefits, business-wise, would be for Espanola, other than a whole new layer of rules, regulations that we would have to adhere to. Excuse me. I have paid personally plenty of fines in Florida, in Palm Coast. We would like to avoid that in Espanola. People out there don't understand this quite right. Now, I understand that we will be forced to hook up to the water department. Doesn't sound like a good deal for anybody out there. No benefit for us. I understand that there is a westward expansion movement in Palm Coast. And I just want to remind everyone here that this is not manifest destiny to go westward. There's people out there, we're out there, and we want to be left alone. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public comment? Seeing no one come forward, we'll bring it back to the dais. Any follow-up, city manager?
Not from an operational sense, sir.
Thank you. Councilman Miller?
Yeah, I just wanted to, in terms of Espanola, so on Friday, the application was pulled in terms of that. And originally, it wasn't Espanola would be part of Palm Coast. It was lands outside of Espanola that are abutting Espanola. So it wouldn't have been pulling Espanola itself into Palm Coast in any way.
A little bit of little deaf, a lot.
Okay. So what I was saying was Espanola would not be part of whatever the application was. It's the lands abutting it, but also that application has been pulled. So as of right now, there is no plan for
I
that.
have nothing to worry about.
No, sir.
Have a great day, folks. Good luck with the rest of y'all.
Anything else, Councilman Miller? Vice Mayor?
Thank you. Just really quickly on the Elite lawsuit with regards to the purchase and sale agreement that was approved by council last week. The impetus of that lawsuit has nothing to do with what anybody on the dais said. So I want to be very clear about that, Mr. Emerald. The only other thing is I was going to touch on what Councilman Miller stated to alleviate the gentleman's concerns. So thank you for addressing that. I have nothing further.
Councilman Sullivan? Nothing. Councilman Gambaro? Thank you, sir. We're going to move along to presentations. Item E, presentations. Our first and only presentation is final proposed budget for all appropriated funds. We have our finance gurus coming up. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council. Gwen Ragsdale. I'm here today with our finance team, Helena Alves and Raylene Bowman, to present the final proposed budget for fiscal year 2027. Today, we will be reviewing the fiscal year 2026 revised budget and the fiscal year 2027 budget to include the general fund and trim, proprietary funds, internal service funds, capital funds, and all remaining funds. We will start by reviewing the total fiscal year 2026 revised budget and fiscal year 2027 budget as a whole. This slide provides a big picture view of expenditures across all city funds. The fiscal year 2026 original adopted budget was $696 million. The estimated fiscal year 2026 budget is now approximately $675 million, a decrease of $25 million, primarily due to the timing of capital projects. The proposed fiscal year 2027 budget is approximately $516 million, which is a decrease of $180 million, or 25%, from the adopted fiscal year 2026 budget. Looking at the fiscal year 2027 budget by major category, utility capital accounts for approximately $161 million, or 31% of the total budget. Water and wastewater utilities account for approximately $92 million, or 18%, while capital utilities account for approximately $92 million, or 18%, while capital projects, street improvements, and impact fee funds account for another $92 million, or 18%. The general fund represents approximately $70 million, or 14%, and stormwater accounts for approximately $32 million, or 6%. Internal service funds make up approximately 4%, with the remaining 9% consisting of all other funds. Overall, the fiscal year 2027 budget reflects a significant reduction from fiscal year 2026, primarily due to the timing and funding of major capital projects. We will now begin reviewing the general fund revenues and expenditures. This is an overview of the positions budgeted for the general fund. There's a total decrease of 3.02 full-time positions. We will go into detail on the individual budgets. This slide provides a high-level summary of the general fund revenues, which reflect an overall increase of approximately $3 million, or 4.6% increase from fiscal year 2026. Ad valorem remains the largest revenue source for the general fund. The fiscal year 2027 property values are based on a taxable value certification received from the property appraiser's office on July 1st. The assessed taxable value is projected to increase by 4.13% over fiscal year 2026. Of that increase, approximately 4.83% is attributable to new construction, meaning existing properties experienced a decrease of 0.7%. Assuming a millage rate of 4.1387, we would generate approximately $45 million in ad valorem revenues. The amount attributable to new construction is approximately $2.1 million. We have received some of the state estimates and have updated the budget for these items since your July presentation. We are still waiting for the communication services tax, but have built in the estimated amounts. The total projection for the state revenues is $8.7 million. Other taxes, this category includes business tax, which has remained relatively stable, and the fire insurance premium tax that supports the Section 175 pension. These estimates typically arrive later in August. Permits and fees, this category includes planning and zoning permit fees as well as franchise fees. The projected decrease is a combination of several factors: expected decrease in planning permit revenues as well as a decrease in residential site inspections. Fines and forfeitures, this category includes code enforcement fines, administrative fees, hazardous tree removal costs, fire mitigation fees, and traffic fines issued by Flagler County Sheriff's Office. Charges for services total approximately $8 million. $3.2 million is related to parks and recreation program fees, including golf, tennis, pool, and recreation program. These will be shown in detail later in the presentation, but the largest increase is expected in your golf course revenues. $4.1 million comes from internal services allocation for the city departments, covering administrative services and for engineering services that are funded 100% from the general fund. Other revenues include interest on investments, facility rents, insurance settlements, and the opioid settlement funds. Annually and after the audit is completed and presented to council, we analyze the prior year's available fund balance as part of the budget process and identify uses accordingly to policy for any amounts over the required maximum. For fiscal year 2027, the $1.8 million appropriated fund balance funds are the annual contingency for revenues and expenditure fluctuations, property tax value adjustment contingency, carryover items from fiscal year 2026 for the Land Development Code and Technical Manual Update, economic development incentives, 2% of the fiscal year 26 general fund budget, compensated absences for retirements, charter amendments, park maintenance equipment, software upgrades, and the fire funding options fee study. This slide provides a high-level summary of the general fund expenditures. The proposed general fund budget for fiscal year 2027 is $70.7 million, an increase of $3.1 million or 4.6% compared to fiscal year 2026. We will now proceed to our general fund expenditures, starting with what we will call our administrative services department, and I will turn the presentation over to Raylene.
Hold on just a second there, Ms. Ragsdale. That's fine, you can continue on. I just want to point out to the public, this is where your taxes go. This is where your city taxes go. And our proposed budget for 2027 is $70,700,000 or so. But that's where your ad valorem taxes go. Thank you.
We will begin with the City Council budget. For fiscal year 2027, The decrease is primarily due to the Charter Review Committee project completion in fiscal year 2026. The city manager and city clerk's office budget are increasing due to the realignment of the risk management division, which moved from human resources. The grants coordinator position remains unfunded at an estimated $100,000 fully burdened. The city attorney's budget is increasing due to specific legal case types not covered under the retainer contract. You will also see the same increase in fiscal year 2026 projected budget. The communications and marketing budget shows a slight increase due to moving a multimedia associate position from Parks and Recreation and the increased costs and internal allocations for facilities and IT. The communications specialist position will go unfunded for fiscal year 2027. The human resources budget decreased by $110,000 due to the risk management division being moved under the city manager's budget as noted earlier. The human resources specialist will remain unfunded for fiscal year 2027 due to budget constraints. The financial services budget increase is primarily due to regular salary and benefit adjustments. The interfund transfers to IT will support necessary software upgrades. The construction management engineering budget decrease is primarily due to unfunding a project manager level 3 position for fiscal year 2027. Since the July presentation, the Community Development Department completed a reorganization that eliminated 2 full-time equivalent FTE positions and reallocated several roles internally. This included adjusting 0.5 FTEs across 4 community development technicians previously funded under the building fund. As a part of the department's restructuring, the code enforcement budget reduction is due to the elimination of 3 FTE positions, the associated internal allocation, and the reduction for the Flagler Humane Society allocation for $210,000. There have been no significant changes to the business tax budget since your July presentation. The economic development budget decreased by 24%, mainly due to the reduction in economic incentives for fiscal year 2027. The fire department budget has decreased since July. Since Tower 22 is not expected to arrive in fiscal year 2027, the department deferred the associated equipment purchase and made further reductions by delaying capital replacements and reducing operational expenses. The law enforcement budget is increasing by 8.7% due to the contractual increase. It does not include funding for the additional 9 deputies requested. The streets maintenance budget has decreased since your July presentation. Personal services have increased due to the updated insurance costs and the addition of the shift differentials to the fiscal year 2027 budget. These changes have also been reflected in the fiscal year 2026 projections, along with the adjustments for overtime.
I'm sorry, can you pause there, please? Can we get into, this is a lot. So can you just get into a little bit more detail on these increases for streets maintenance?
Is Matt available to comment?
So I can also comment on the personnel services. The insurance, there were some employees who previously had single, and now they switched to family coverage. So we had to make that change in this as well.
Okay, do you know how much, like what percentage of the $422,000 was due to insurance increases? Do we have any idea about that? And I'm trying to ascertain what that is, just because we've talked about the increased cost of insurance previously, and we've discussed a way to somewhat address that for the future budgets. But it's hard to wrap my hands around what all that encompasses when we don't know what portion of this $422,000 is due to insurance.
It was on that spreadsheet. I'll
go grab my computer and I can pull that up real quick.
No, that's okay. If it's somewhere specific, I can go back and look at it. Because
No.
I know things have been updated. I wasn't sure if we had the updated numbers.
I don't recall. I looked at that yesterday when you had inquired about some of the increases, and all of those increases in personnel were due to increases either in health insurance, the workman's comp insurance.
It's comp.
Yep, and then, of course, you have the, I think the slight increase for either merit or COLA that was included as well. Was a very minor increase, but the majority of that is between the workman's comp and the health insurance.
Forgot about workman's comp. Okay. All right, thank you. And then can you further explain the internal services allocation? What's that increase for?
Internal service allocation would be for like the fleet maintenance and replacement allocations. The IT allocations have both increased. And those go along with the continued increases in program costs that we have, as well as within fleet. Anytime that we have new purchases, it starts a fleet replacement allocation for those items. With the increase since, say, 2020 in the cost of vehicles, every replacement allocation that we've had come online since that time has also increased. So, for instance, a pickup truck that would have cost $25,000 in 2018, we're now seeing those around $60,000 for the same vehicle.
Yeah, so I do recall over the past several years, we've seen kind of these post-COVID increases, but I'm wondering at what point, and I know you don't have a crystal ball, but at what point that stops. We just continue to see these increases. And for internal allocations, for fleet in general, I'm concerned about. So I don't know what we need to do, if we just need kind of a analysis or a reanalysis, so to speak, of how we're getting vehicles, parts, et cetera. But it seems like we've just kind of accepted this continuous incline, and I'm wondering if there's been any flattening out at all from what we saw in early.
There's been a flattening out of the year-over-year increases, but it's not going down to pre-COVID prices.
Well, sure, I wouldn't expect that.
We're not seeing, double-digit increases year over year anymore. It's kind of gone back to the normal, increase prior to that time. However, the floor has risen to this point, and that's kind of where we are with the market.
Okay, thank you.
Insurance is killing us across the board.
Killing us.
I have a question. In regards to the fleet management program, it's constantly reevaluating. Is that correct?
It is. So, we look at the current contracts that we have. We look at our fleet manager goes to the conferences every year and sees what the prevailing marketplace is doing. He also benchmarks, other best practices within the industry. And then we're looking at, things that we're doing internally as well, whether it's outsourcing, insourcing, and those kind of things. When it comes to the replacement of the assets, we're scrutinizing that very heavily. So I think, when I looked at it, I apologize.
I know you deferred
Same
quite a
numbers,
bit.
Right. We looked at 300 and some change that were due replacement this year, and we're only recommending around 90 for replacement.
Yeah, and that was my question. If the cost of replacement is now stretching higher, does that then make it more cost effective for a longer lifespan versus maintenance?
There's a exact time frame that is like the best.
Right, there's a window,
point of
right, when you're
replacement, right? So
maximizing that.
Exactly, it's kind of the point of diminishing returns. So, we analyze the residual value along with the replacement to make sure that before the replacement or the repair costs skyrocket and the residual value tanks, we want to get rid of that vehicle like right at that crossroads.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to, have we seen that shift or change due to these rising prices?
We have definitely seen, if you look at around 2023, we were accelerating the replacement a little faster because our residual values were much higher at that point, right? So the resale market was higher. We could replace that item and get a newer vehicle at, a better savings, better overall value. Now we're not seeing that. So if you look at the vehicles that we're replacing this year, a lot of them are 11, 12 years old. versus where we were kind of leaning towards, 7 or 8 for a white fleet around that time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
The Parks and Recreation budget has decreased since your July presentation, primarily due to the reductions in recreational activities and a decrease in property insurance costs. The insurance adjustment reflects an audit that removed items no longer needing coverage. Additionally, the cultural grant funding has been reduced by $25,000. The Aquatic Center budget has decreased since your July presentation, primarily due to a reduction in the property insurance costs as noted on the previous slide. The Southern Recreation Center budget has decreased since your July presentation. Personnel costs have been reduced alongside of other operating expenses, including property insurance costs as noted on the previous slide. The Palm Harbor Golf budget has decreased since your July presentation. The replacement of certain equipment has been deferred to future years. For fiscal year 2026, we are finalizing the CIP budget and will have updated numbers at our next presentation. The Parks Maintenance Division consists of parks, trails, and field maintenance. The budget has not had a significant change since your July presentation. We will now review the non-departmental budget. For fiscal year 2027, the budget has not changed since your July presentation. We are proposing contingency funding to accommodate revenue and expenditure fluctuations, value adjustment board changes, and compensated absences. This concludes the general fund. Do you have any questions on this section?
Council, anyone have any questions?
I don't have any questions. Mayor, when do you want to discuss, when do you want to have a board discussion as far as what we're going to do with the general fund? You want to do that now? I don't have any questions, but I have comments.
That's fine if you want to, if you have something you want to.
Yeah, a few things. So on this last slide here, we have a proposed contingency of $890,000. It's my understanding that $400,000 of this is made up of the city manager's contingency, and $200,000 is that the value adjustment board contingency? Can you explain what that is?
So we budget 96% of ad valorem. We're required by statute to budget 95%. We try to get to the 96 because it's closer to our collection rate through the tax collector, but we still keep that contingency in case we don't meet that 96%, or it's 95.9, but it could also be 96.2. So if there's a positive outcome where we receive more than what we budgeted, it just goes into fund balance. The same thing with this value adjustment board. It is funded from fund balance, so it's not necessarily a additional expense every year.
Okay. Well, don't we budget for it every year, though?
We budget for it every year, and we fund it from fund balance.
The city manager's contingency, I don't know, I don't agree with $400,000. I understand that this year we're estimated to, well, let me ask you this, the $386,250, does that include city manager and value adjustment board?
For 26, no, we removed the value adjustment board because we met our target for property tax revenue from fiscal year 25.
Got it. So this is only city manager contingency?
That is correct.
Okay. I would propose, I'll tell you the counties, their county administrator has a contingency of $100,000. I don't think city manager needs a contingency of $400,000. I think $200,000 should be sufficient. I understand that this year it went to $386, but part of that is because of legal fees, and we're increasing the attorney's contract. So that should alleviate any need to kind of dip into contingency for legal, hopefully, this coming year. So I wouldn't advocate for a $400,000 contingency for city manager. I would advocate for $200,000. I would also say that in the general fund, so we are because of new construction, we are projected to bring in an additional $3.14 million. If we reduce our expenses by only 5% from that increase, It's $157,000. I know right now the budget is not projected to fund any of the new sheriff's deputies. But we can get one deputy just by reducing our expenses for the general fund and this is increased expenses. So we're not asking the expenses really to be reduced from what was last year. We're seeing an increase of expenses of $3.14 million. If we reduce that by 5%, it's $157,000. If we reduce it by 10%, it's $300,000. So I think even with that small adjustment, we can get one or two sheriff's deputies to try to comply with the agreement to an extent that we made with the sheriff's office. So I would pose that for consideration to council at this time. The other question I had was, in community compliance, due to the reduction of FTEs, do we also already consider what that would do to fleet?
Yes.
Okay, and where is that reflected? Is it reflected in their budget that we just looked at?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And then to be clear, the animal control, or I'm sorry, the Flagler Humane Society contract, the cost that's reflected in the budget is for a contract increase to $210,000, right?
That is correct.
And what was that originally? It was like 180, something like that?
I think.
326,
Well, no, I think
we
what
had
Councilman
increased it
Miller is
to.
asking what it was last year.
Yeah.
So the 26 budget had to be increased to 190,000 to accommodate the cases that
Right.
happened.
But
to
I mean,
air in
this
the summer.
constitutes like a 22% increase, I believe, something like that. So I just wanted to point that out, given that there was kind of a op-ed in the newspaper about how Palm Coast was cutting the Humane Society budget and actually were cutting their request to double the budget. And so this is actually a 22% increase in that contractual amount that they had in the year prior. So I had several people email me about it and, addressed it to them that this is actually an increase for them. It's not a cut. So just wanted to point that out, that this is, I think it's roughly like 21 point something % increase in what they were contracted last year.
Originally, maybe, but I think from what it ended up being, correct me if I'm wrong, it's about a 10%, because that's what we've seen. We've seen a steady climb of about 10% year after year, right? So we're trying to tell them, hey, we'll stick with what we've seen. We're not going to, quote unquote, defund them, but just not grant their request to double. So that's what I pose to council at this time, is reducing the expenses by 10% for the general fund so that we can fund 2 sheriff's deputies. We've seen an increase in population. We asked the sheriff's office for data to support what they were asking for. They did a report. They gave us the data. Our population certainly hasn't decreased. And, we still are encountering tragedies like we got at 2 a.m. this morning, that our sheriff's deputies have to work and they do a good job. So I would pose that to council, and also pose the reduction of a city manager contingency from $400,000 to $200,000. Thank you, Mayor.
Ms. Pontier, just for my notes, you said reduce it by 10% to fund how many deputies?
I believe that would fund 2, and I know we have Chief Sturbridge here, but I think it's about $150,000, $160,000 per deputy, so I think that's about what it would fund.
But before we go down that road, I had a question based on your assumption of new construction. Can we walk through that? Because Vice Mayor, you said, with the numbers of addition of new construction, you're assuming that's going to remain the same or increase, correct?
Well, no, I'm saying that because values, the only reason we're seeing, because we're going back to rollback rate, right? And I know we're going to get there in a minute, but the proposal from staff, from what we're looking at now, is to go to the rollback rate.
Right.
Which would mean that current construction would bring in flat revenues, right? So the only increased revenues we would see is because of new construction that's come online. So that increase that we're seeing of $3.14 million in ad valorem is then set off by $3.14 million in increased expenses.
Okay, so my question is it safe to assume that that will be sustained over time if we were to move those funds, to support the sheriff's two deputy positions? I mean, is that a good assumption?
So we don't really know what the property values are gonna be next year. This year, existing properties saw a reduction in taxable value. So I have no way of knowing what the values are gonna be for next year, especially when you have the amendment on the ballot also. But I did want to clarify that the general fund increase of 3.1 million, 2.8 are coming from ad valorem taxes. The balance is other revenues.
Okay,
Just
so most of
just
it
for
The other
clarification.
sales tax and things like that, yeah.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't think that would be prudent right now, Vice Mayor, to do that going into the next fiscal year. I don't want the sheriff to hire new deputies and then have to turn around and we're not going to be able to support that if the tax referendum goes through. I have no problem with reducing the contingency, but I also know that Matt was requesting two new employees, and we're not covering that, right? We don't have that slated.
No, sir.
And that's a lot less cost than it would be. What would the cost be for each of those new employees?
So the cost for both was like 133, am I correct?
133 fully burdened?
Yes.
That's something that Matt's been insisting on that he needs, and he's been kind of flat in doing everything he can for the city. I just don't think it's prudent to try to take on two new deputies considering the budget referendum coming through. Anything else from the council?
If it comes through. I mean, I think my issue with what we're doing with this budget is that we have things like special events. I think there's $120,000 or 120, I can't remember what, where it's listed, but there's like 120,000 or 130,000. And, it's not that I want to get rid of special events for the city, for the unforeseeable future. But right now, we have to prioritize. And it's my opinion that we are not prioritizing correctly. So I think that public safety always needs to be prioritized. With the increased population, we need increased enforcement. There are things that, in my opinion, if we had more manpower, we would be able to enforce at a higher level. It's not just traffic, it's not just public safety, it's even things like animal control. We've heard a lot of complaints about that. So I understand your position, Mayor. We don't know if Amendment 3 is going to pass. Gotta hope that if it does, there'll be a way to fund public safety through the legislature. And I know there's other ways to bring in revenues that we need to discuss. But through this budget, if we ask, and I advocated for Matt Mansell to get another FTE, maybe two, I can't even remember at this point, but council didn't want to go with changing up to a higher extent code compliance. So that, again, was a policy decision. It's my opinion that the policy needs to be that we are prioritizing public safety. They asked for 9, giving them 2. By the way, the county funded all 4. So they're prioritizing it. To fund 2 with a 10% reduction of a $3 million budget, or I should say increase in a budget, is not a lot to ask. So I would just ask that council further consider it.
Yes, go right ahead, Mr. Sullivan.
At the last meeting, I looked at the request for the 9 deputies. Remember, I said pause. I wasn't saying we shouldn't do it, but I was saying we should wait and see what happens with Amendment 3. We don't know yet, I agree. It could go either way. We also have the legal case on impact fees, where our impact fees are going to be dramatically reduced if that legal case goes forward as the judge has stated so far. So I don't think it's 1 or 2 that's the big problem here. I think it's based on where we are following the election, what happens with the amendments, and a few other things, at which point we can go back to try to get back towards what the sheriff request is. So my thought was just doing one or 2 doesn't really solve the problem. And the bigger problem is, and that's why I was saying pause, is what's going to happen in the next few months that we don't really know right now. So I agree with the chairman, with our mayor on that.
Councilman Gambaro, did you have something? I thought you started to say something. My biggest thing is you have to worry about calculated risk. If we are by stats, we are the second safest city in the state of Florida, if I'm not mistaken. Chief, you can correct me if I'm wrong. And my line has been since the beginning of the budget cycle was to hold the line because we don't know what's going to happen. And right now, the last time I checked, the amendment is polling at like 65% approval. And I hate to step in and make commitments that we're not going to be able to sustain in the future. And we had this discussion yesterday in my joint meeting with the attorney and the city manager. There's a lot of flux in this, and we don't know. And making those commitments right now I don't think it's prudent, and that's just my opinion. But we can do a consensus and see where everyone stands.
Mayor, respectfully, you all just approved a $15 million purchase of land in Town Center, and we're talking about $300,000 to not be prudent. I mean, I'm sorry. I just, to me, this just doesn't comport. So I know we're going to get into the millage next, and then I guess what we're going to do with fund balance. And yes, we are a very safe city, but that's because we have continued to support law enforcement, and that can quickly go away. So, you know, we've got a lot more to talk about today, but I think we need to look at big picture. Big picture, what has this council decided over the past few weeks? And what are they going to consider as we move forward as far as what we're doing with taxpayer dollars? I think that when we say, well, what's prudent and what's not, it's a tough sell for me, Mayor, I got to tell you.
Well, and you also have to consider what are we going to have to do if we have that drastic cut in our ad valorem. We're going to have to find other ways to pull that revenue, and it's going to be a shift in tax burden. So if you're not committed to that, you don't have to try to focus those increases in fees or whatever to meet that need. And it's basically going to be a shift in tax burden. And I would rather not get in that position where we have to put more fees on the residents by staying the line and staying where we're at now. But that's just, you know, we can come to a consensus. It's not just me, that's just my thoughts on that.
And also, sheriff's deputies are not a one-time charge. Once you have
cost.
them, it's a reoccurring cost every year as far into the future as we can see at this point.
And the increases that we're getting in health care, I'm sure the sheriff and Chief Strobridge are dealing with the same thing, the drastic increase that are continuously coming with health insurance and all the other fully burdened costs. But do we want to go and see if we can come to consensus on two items, reducing the contingency by $200,000? And if we're going to fund at least one deputy, do you guys want to go with that?
Ty, where are you at on this?
I think in the current state, you know, in terms of our financial responsibilities, some of which are recent, I don't think it's a good idea to, and I agree that I think public safety is important and that we should be focusing on that. But we've also made other decisions that require us to be responsible in that way too. So for me, while I support the sheriff's office, I think they do a phenomenal job. I think we need to be, you know, responsible to the commitments we've already made. And so I wouldn't support that, trying to carve out 2 new deputies in the coming year. The city manager contingency, I would support reducing that.
Okay, so it sounds like we have consensus to reduce the contingency by $200,000.
Yes.
Everyone's got a yes on that one? Okay, thank you. Anything else from the council? Ms. Ragsdale?
Okay, now we will go over the truth in millage or TRIM. This graph illustrates the city's millage rate history since 2018, along with trends in property values, millage rates, and receipts collected over the past several years. The city has experienced continued growth in both property values and population. The fiscal year 2027 property values are based on the property appraiser's July 1st valuation and assume a millage rate of 4.1387. So this is a look at the millage options. The rolled back rate is 4.1387. The fiscal year 2026 adopted rate was 4.0893. The adopted maximum millage rate for fiscal year 27 is 4.2296, and the proposed rate for fiscal year 2027 is 4.1387.
Hold on just a second, Ms. Ragsdale. Let's go back, let's go back to that previous subject. So do we want to use that 200,000 to fund the two positions that Matt's asking for, which was a total, yes, ma'am?
If I can clarify, the city manager contingency is also funded from fund balance. So by cutting the contingency, you're cutting the fund balance appropriation. It's a zero sum.
Okay, thank you. All right, I just want to clarify. Thank you, ma'am.
And just on that position, no. I mean, I think if my position is we've got to save that money because of other decisions we made, then we've got to save that money.
Hold the line.
Yeah.
I got it.
Hold the line.
I concur.
Everybody concurs. Okay, I'm sorry, Ms. Ragsdale.
Can we go back for 1 second, please? So, rollback rate. So this is this is rollback rate, not with the CPI index, correct?
That is correct. This is the rollback rate.
Okay, so, because a rollback rate with CPI index would actually put us over the adopted maximum millage?
So if we were to apply a CPI index to that rollback rate, yes, you would be close to, or depending which CPI you use, a little above.
Okay, because that was the guidance from this council, previously, and now I wanted to highlight that what's being shown here is actual
The rollback
the
rate.
rollback rate without CPI. Thank you.
That is correct.
Could I just make a statement just on what that means? If I had a $20 bill 12 months ago, and I put it in a safe, and just left it there for 12 months, 12 months ago I could buy $20 worth of stuff at that point. If 12 months later I took that $20 out, and the CPI was 3 point whatever it is, I could buy $19.93 worth of stuff. So that's what the rollback rate is this time. It's the exact same dollars, or close to the exact same dollars we got last year without CPI. So the actual value of that money is less now than it was when we established those dollars last year. Sometimes it's hard to say. It has to do with value versus the actual dollar amount. And so we're not increasing the value of the budget. We're actually slightly decreasing it, even with the rollback rate.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Ragsdale, you can continue.
Okay. We will review the proprietary funds, starting with the water wastewater department. We will review the department's operational budgets and expected revenues. So there is a total of 14.5 new FTEs added to the water wastewater fund as presented in July. This provides a big picture view of the utility fund revenues, which have increased by approximately $4.7 million or 5.3%. The increase in charges for services is based on the most recent utility rate study. These rates are intended to support the capital projects identified by City Council. Other revenues primarily include interest income earned on the city's investments. This is a big picture summary of the water wastewater utility fund expenditures for approximately $88 million for 2026 and $92 million for fiscal year 2027. This slide has been updated since the agenda packet was released. The formula used to calculate the change in capital outlay was incorrect and has been corrected. There has been no changes to the administration, customer service, or utility finance budgets since your July presentation, the fiscal year 2027 budget is approximately $6 million. For fiscal year 2026, you will see an increase of approximately $2.5 million due to City Council's approval of the capital project for 2 Utility Drive. The wastewater budget is approximately $17 million, with a small reduction in internal service fund allocations since your July presentation. The water budget is approximately $20 million, with a small reduction in internal service funds allocations since your July presentation as well. Utility non-departmental operating expenditures has decreased by $178,000. This is a combination of the decrease in budgeted debt service for the Series 2026 bonds and an increase in contingency for the funds to be used for R&R. This is a summary of your water wastewater 5-year capital project fund. The fiscal year 27 budget is approximately $161 million. There have been no changes since your August 11th presentation. Do you have any questions on this fund before we move forward?
Any questions out of council? No, ma'am.
Yeah, so there's no changes because generally we're talking about the millage and our ad valorem receipts, and so this is not part of that, correct? That's the reason why there's no changes?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, next is our Stormwater Management Fund, operational and capital budgets, and I will turn it back over to Raylene.
There is a total of 1 new FTE added to the Stormwater Fund as presented in July. This is a summary of the Stormwater Management Fund revenues for fiscal year 2027, which total approximately $32 million. There were no changes from your July 28th presentation. This is a summary of the Stormwater Management Fund expenditures. This does include capital projects of approximately $10 million for a total budget of $32 million for fiscal year 2027. The stormwater maintenance fiscal year 2027 budget is approximately $13.9 million, representing an increase of 1.6% from fiscal year 2026 adopted budget. There have been no significant changes to the budget since it was presented in July. The stormwater engineering fiscal year 2027 budget is approximately $12.3 million, representing a 44.8% decrease from the fiscal year 2026 adopted budget. The decrease is primarily due to changes in the capital project timing. There have been no significant changes to the budget since it was presented in July and August. The stormwater management non-departmental fiscal year 2027 budget is approximately $6 million, representing a 7.8% decrease from the adopted fiscal year 2026 budget. There have been no significant changes to the budget since the July presentation. This slide shows the revenue supporting the stormwater management 5-year capital plan. The fiscal year 2027 budget is approximately $32 million. For fiscal year 2027, there will be no ad valorem tax allocation to the Stormwater Management Fund. The fund will be supported through other available revenue sources for planned capital projects.
Hold on just a second there. You're saying there's no money from ad valorem going into the stormwater. In the past, has it been? How much has gone, like last year, did we have any money that went from ad valorem into stormwater?
So if you see on the slide, in fiscal year 26, there's
Okay.
$530,721.
Okay.
That is what was allocated for 26.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
This slide shows the expenditures included in the Stormwater Management Fund's 5-year capital plan. The fiscal year 2026 expenditure is approximately $33 million, while the fiscal year 2027 expenditure is approximately $32 million. There have been no changes to the capital plan since your August 11th presentation. Are there any questions before we move on?
Yeah, I just have a question in regards to, we can see that in 28 it peaks, it looks like, in terms of overall budget, but then it starts going back down. Is there a reason for that estimate to go down? It looks like we have projects scheduled kind of until 29.
It's true.
Mock allocations or?
I can respond to that. We currently have a loan, balance of the loan, and so we're using up the loan over this year and next year. So we have those loan proceeds in there. That's why I have more money in the first few years, and then it goes down because we're paying cash for projects.
Okay, so it's capital projects that are earlier in this 5-year plan that are.
Right, and then we start paying back the loan over time, so we have less cash available for those projects. So that's going in the non-departmental budget.
Thank you.
Next, we will move on to the Building, Information Technology, and Collection and Sanitation funds. There were no new personnel requests for the Building Fund, the Collection and Sanitation Fund, or the Information Technology Enterprise Fund. For the Building Fund, the fiscal year 2027 budget includes a reduction of 2.98 FTEs, as mentioned earlier in the presentation. This is to better align administrative responsibilities, as was discussed in your July presentation. The total fiscal year 2027 budget for the Building Permits Fund is approximately $3 million, representing an 11.2% decrease from the fiscal year 2026 adopted budget. The decrease in revenue is primarily due to an expected reduction in the number of permits. The decrease in personnel services is due to the transfer of FTEs discussed on the previous slide, as well as the freezing of 4 positions. The Collection and Sanitation Fund budget has an increase of 5.2% to accommodate the current contract for the solid waste residential services.
Can I stop you there? Sorry, can you go back? Do we have any information on what the increase in revenues is attributable to, as well as the increase in operating expenditures?
So it's going to be a combination of the CPI increase that's going to go into effect on October 1st, and then a conservative increase for population growth.
And this contract for solid waste, when is that contract up?
It was a 7-year contract, so we probably still have another 4 years, but Matt Mansell could probably answer those questions a lot better than me.
When
So-
did you guys do it, 2002 or 2003?
I didn't do it.
I think we're
It
on
was-
year
it
3.
was
Before you?
It was before me.
Holy moly.
Yeah, so I guess, let me ask it this way. Are these figures based on contract, or are these based on our calculations?
So the CPI is based on contract,
Okay.
and then the growth is based on our experience of increase in account. New homes coming online, basically.
Okay, thank
You
you.
had an increase of 8,000 residents over the past year. So.
The IT Enterprise Fund collects revenue from fiber and broadband services, as well as cell tower revenue. The fiber revenue comes from services such as dark fiber leases and services we provide to municipal partners. There have been no significant changes since your July presentation. Gwen will now review the remaining funds. Are there any questions before we move on?
Any questions of the council? Go right ahead.
Okay, the city has 4 internal service funds, which are used to budget for departments that provide day-to-day services and support to other city departments. The slide provides a summary of the current FTEs and new personnel requests across these funds. There is 1 new personnel request for fleet management. Facilities management and information technology have no new position requests for fiscal year 2027. The Fleet Management Fund for fiscal year 2027's budget is approximately $13.4 million. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
What happened?
Let's go back. There we go. Okay. So we'll start. The Fleet Management Fund for fiscal year 2027 budget is approximately $13.4 million. The increase includes funding set aside for future capital replacements to ensure the city can plan for upcoming fleet needs. Fiscal year 2026 increase of approximately $700,000 is for the approval from council for the purchase of an excavator for stormwater in fiscal year 2026 instead of fiscal year 2027. This slide provides a list of the new white fleet and equipment requests for fiscal year 2027. We are still working to finalize the updated quotes and expect to have the final cost available for the September 9th presentation. A resolution agenda item and supporting backup materials will be presented to Council on September 24th. The Facilities Management Fund has had a small increase since your July presentation. The fiscal year 2027 budget is approximately $2.3 million, representing a 5% increase from the fiscal year 2026 adopted budget. The Information Technology Internal Services Fund budget includes reductions from the elimination of selected software platforms, as well as decreases in consulting, training, and other operations since your July presentation. The budget also accounts for ongoing software costs previously approved by City Council, including annual price increases associated with maintaining software licenses. And the overall 2027 budget has decreased approximately $150,000 since your July presentation. Are there any questions on these funds before we move on?
Any questions? Go right ahead.
Okay, Director Carl Cody will present the Capital Projects Fund.
Good morning, Carl.
Good morning. So we'll go through the various funding here. The first one is the Capital Projects Fund revenues. This one here, really no substantial changes since what was presented August 11th. On the revenue side, I think we're still waiting on the sales tax revenue projections. We don't have those yet for the county-wide revenues, so that may be updated in the future potentially. The expenditures, no major changes here in this account. As you see, we have the various projects in here. The bulk of the money is going towards, moving forward with the MOC. The next phase is to finalize the fleet facility and accessory buildings there for that first phase. Streets Improvement Fund, there were some changes here. We did get updated revenue projections from the state, and the state revenue sharing actually went down, but it did not have an impact to the overall plan. I know the streets rehab and renewal line item, we had much discussion last meeting about how we move forward, and there were some decisions and direction from council we were seeking. One of them was the current year budget has $1 million that was set aside for microservicing, and whether we wanted to repurpose that and start going after our residential collector roadways based on the latest findings from the study. There was feedback from council about shifting projects along in the plan, pushing Belterre further out and moving Old Kings Road up. I did send some information out to council members as to why Belterre was ahead of Old Kings, as well as not moving forward with Old Kings in next year's budget. We will be starting construction on widening the road from Coquina basically up to a Frontier area, and with all the construction activity and traffic, it would be better to repave that northern section at the end of construction. So staff's recommendation was we would do Old Kings in 28 when we were finalizing construction. It would still go ahead of Belterre. We would still continue to assess Belterre. There's some rutting and some other issues on the north end. Whether we keep it as one project or not, we'll just continue to annually, revisit those roadways and see what the condition's at and where it makes the most economical sense to move forward. But in the current plan, we shifted the roads up. We took Hargrove off. We funded Town Center. We, I think, added 6 residential collector roads on there. And then the following year, we would do Old Kings in 28. 29, we would do nothing. And then in 30, we did Belterre, all of Belterre. And then in 31, we had some follow-up roads, Palm Harbor, Matanzas, and some other roadways. And that was the recommended plan based on council feedback. And I guess we're just seeking concurrence.
So to clarify, so town center will be funded in what you're proposing?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And in what you're proposing, no fund balance is going towards the streets improvement at this time?
Right, not from current fund balance. The $1 million from last year was the previous year's fund balance.
Right, and so in what you're proposing right now, that's still going to microservicing, or it's already been shifted to collectors?
Well, that'd be the direction. Staff's recommendation is to use those funds and put it towards residential collector roadways.
What collector roadways are you proposing to add?
There was 6 on the list. I have it at my desk.
Send another email.
So the residential collectors were Rickenbacker Drive, Pine Grove Drive, Boston Lane, Laramie Drive, Pritchard Drive, and Bel Air Drive.
Is that in order of what you're recommending, or is that in no particular order?
We had 2 per year, so they were in priority order based on the overall PCI index of the road and then the segments, because they analyze intersection to intersection, and some of those have 30s and 40s. All these roads have segments that are under 50. So all that's factored in, and as well as trying to line up with the budget. We're trying to do $1 million a year, so we picked 2 roads that kind of fit the budget as well.
We can mill and resurface 2 of those, the portions that you're talking about for that $1 million price point?
Correct. I think all these 6 together were $2.4 million potentially. I'd have to go back and check my math on that, but it fit into the budget. Using that $1 million, taking off Hargrove, shifting Old Kings out, we were able to add those additional 4 roads into this current year's budget, proposed budget for 27.
We good with what they recommended?
Well, they need direction. So I think the direction that's needed is, are we going to keep the $1 million from last year to put towards microsurfacing, or are we going to try to tackle 2, right, of these roads?
Yeah, well, correct.
Okay. So what are the top 2 then that would be addressed?
It was Rickenbacker and Pine Grove were the 2 that were proposed by staff.
But if we were to, say we were to take fund balance and put it towards what you're talking about, we could actually get all of those done for another 1.4 out of this year's fund balance.
Well, the 27, all 6 roads can get done with the current funding in Streets Improvement Fund and using those $1 million by not doing Old Kings next year, and we eliminated Hargrove from the list of roads.
Okay.
So by making those 2 changes, we were able to add 4 more collector roads on there. We have lots of more residential collectors to do. Ideally, we would do more if there was more funding.
So all 6?
All 6 would get done with current proposed budget with using no fund balance.
I support the proposed plan.
Absolutely.
Everybody good with
Yeah,
that?
Especially the logic behind shifting Old Kings makes sense, right? There's no reason to pave that either concurrently while we're trying to do a larger project on that road or right before. So it makes sense to shift those back to where they were.
You good, Carl?
Yes, thank you. So Transportation Impact Fee Fund, there's no changes here. You'll see when we get to the impact fee funds where we backed out, or we're putting some of those impact fees into escrow just based on the current lawsuit. These impact fee calculations are very cumbersome because they're all different. There's different categories. There's lots of square footage calculations. There's lots of permits. So this is currently being evaluated, and we'll provide that update for the next budget meeting.
Yeah, can we just can you get back to that, please? I just want to point out that we've got impact fee funds slated for the Loop Road, and I would propose putting an absolute halt on anything going towards anything with the westward expansion until we figure out what FDOT is going to do.
Well,
I don't.
That'd be a question for council, because the only impact fees that are encumbered currently are the active construction contract that is underway. So is council asking to halt construction?
Well, I understand you say that, but it looks like there's other monies that are projected to be funded, so it says proposed 2027, proposed 2028, proposed, I mean, there's other monies.
Those are all DOT dollars, 100%.
Okay, so there's no other
There's no
impact.
other impact
Okay.
fees allocated or encumbered, except for the current construction contract.
Okay, because it says transportation impact. fee
Yeah,
up
because
top,
it's coming
so-
from revenue up top from the grants.
Okay, I want to make sure that we're not putting any further city monies towards anything until we figure out what they're going to do, because now with the westward expansion application being withdrawn, our residents and even transportation impact fees that could be used elsewhere should not be going towards that.
Right, there are none planned.
And that's,
So-
everybody's in consensus with that, right?
Yeah, I'm good with that. So just to clarify, when we're talking about the expenditures portion of this table, that's including not just the impact fee revenues. It's a mix of all these different revenues going towards it.
Correct.
That slide may need some help there, Carl. That way we know the difference.
It's a lot of information, so it's
Yeah,
hard
well-
to break it up even further.
Well, yeah, it doesn't,
I'm just saying that we know, only two of us are moving forward, so we'll just have to keep that in our toolkit there, Councilman Miller.
I'll try to remember it, Mr. Mayor.
Have fun with it.
It is difficult because some projects have split funding, some have only
Right.
grant
Right.
funding. So I'm trying to think of a way to organize it.
maybe
where we have
color
grant
code it. You
projects.
could color code it.
In the detail, we do color code it. The
Yeah.
blue lines are partially or fully grant funded.
And you guys have done
Backup. It's a little easier to follow.
You guys have done a good job when we talk about specific projects, showing the source of funding and the different breakdowns of where that money is coming from, because I think that's helpful for everybody to know. I think it's just hard on this type of chart because there's,
It is.
And Carl, we
20
had,
different columns and rows.
Carl, in passing, we had a conversation about how much money from the city has gone to that westward road. Could you?
Correct. The Loop Road total funded in this fund is overall of past expense and future is $135 million. $10 million is city transportation impact fees. $125 were state appropriations, last DOT, grant funding.
Okay, but nothing from our ad valorem.
Nothing from ad valorem.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to clarify that.
Transportation impact fee fund. There are no changes here from the last presentation. Recreation impact fee fund. You can see here in the revenues, we did put a dollar figure in here for, call it reserve. And what that is we recalculated the impact fees, depending on the outcome of the lawsuit. So this one is fairly simple because it's by dwelling unit. So what we encounter is we have older permits that were paying the old fee, that paid the fee at CO. So that total revenue isn't all charged on the new fee. So we had to back out the older permits that paid the fee, and then we deducted the increase based on the new permits, and that's what we put in reserve. And that was just as of, a week ago or so. So when we do the final budget actuals, that will be updated and verified.
No, I think it's wise to segregate that money that way, pending the outcome, so that
And this
we're
was-
not counting on it for any projects because we can't. Right.
And that was our outcome. We just want to make sure we had the cash in the bank in case we need to do it. And what we factored in was doing the next tier down above the extraordinary circumstances, which was 50% with 12.5% per year increase over the current rate. And that's what was used in this calculation.
Contingency.
So there's no major projects in here. No major changes, sorry. Other than that, the project stayed the same.
And can you tell me, and just because we have folks that were here for the skate park, we have 300,000 there. That is including impact fees and what revenues? I would assume.
It would be the capital projects fund for the existing citizen match.
Okay, thank you.
Fire impact fee fund. So again, the same analysis was done here on those revenues, backing out the old permit fee amounts with the news and what those revenues would be. We don't have any major projects in the fire impact fee fund. We're wrapping up our fire station. I think move-in day is this coming Monday for 22. So that's a major benefit. positive news out there. So there's plenty of dollars in here. Well, I say plenty of dollars. There's money in here we're saving up for future projects. You know, it took us 20 years to get to this station, so we're be saving up for a few more years. Old Kings Road Special Assessment, just I think there's just some minor changes in here, you know, QCing the revenue appropriations in terms of what comes into this fund from the impact fee fund on projects. So then Arts for Public Places, this was a new slide added. You know, as we're collecting impact fees, non-impact fees, we're collecting arts fund fees based on type of construction per the ordinance that was adopted by council. And I think there's, you know, a handful or more of projects where we collected some revenue and it went in here and will be set aside for future use.
Is the promenade money reflected in here?
They permitted before the ordinance was enacted. The biggest one, I think, is coming from the cable landing station. And that goes over 200 grand. I think they paid into this fund.
We didn't get it done in the nick of time, huh? Okay, thank you.
SR 100 CRA fund. So this one, there's some major changes completed. We have the tax exemption on CDD properties. So if the city, you know, closes on that property and takes over that property, we're going to lose some taxable value. So that's been identified in there. There's also some additional expense regarding maintenance and, you know, fees associated with owning those properties to the CDD and maintaining those properties. So those operating expenses went up. And then there's some additional debt service tied to those properties with the Old Kings Road Special Assessment District. So all that's factored in here. It shifted some of the interfund transfers. Mainly, I think we shifted a little bit of utility money. Originally, we were paying back utility fully next year. A little of that spilled over into 28, and then the Park Impact Fee Fund is owed some money, and that moved over into 28. So by 28, all those interfund transfers, paying back utility and the Park Impact Fee Fund will be completed. The old loan will be paid off, and at that point, any additional revenues or surplus is earmarked for that land acquisition repayment. You can see that line item in there starting in 29 and moving forward would be to pay back that purchase of the land. Obviously, that would speed up if we sold some land, but.
Can I ask you, do we have a decision yet from our school district on the YMCA? As far as their decision to fund either pool at all, junior Olympic size pool or Olympic size pool?
I have not been involved in those discussions.
I'm not aware of any determination having been met, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay, I have a problem with what we're doing here. So basically what we have earmarked is $3 million for an Olympic-sized pool. But if the school district does not agree to also put in $3 million, there can be no Olympic-sized pool. And we're tying up dollars that could be used to pave Town Center Boulevard, and then we could take the monies that we're using to pave Town Center Boulevard and use them to pave something else. So this determination with regards to what we're doing for the YMCA really hits me the wrong way. It also hits me the wrong way for the fact that essentially what we're saying is that an Olympic-sized pool is going to cost $6 million. And I've done a lot of research, and I think an Olympic-sized pool could cost $4 to $5 million. So for me, when do we have to make a final determination as to what we're doing with CRA monies? What's the drop dead date on that?
So your first public hearing is September 9th, so any funds would be very helpful to have identified before then.
Can we get an answer out
And
of
your
the school
final
district?
is
Yeah,
on-
we need to know what's going on.
Can we get an answer out of
Yeah,
the what's their holdup? What's the
I
delay?
can solicit that and ensure that it gets to council.
And, you know, I don't want to speak for them, but I know they had a conversation about this 3 months ago when they were
It's
talking
been
about
ongoing, yeah.
Yeah.
you know, but publicly they had a conversation in regards to, you know, whether they would try to support the YMCA. They talked about they had identified a bunch of lands that could not be used by the schools for school purposes, and so had made a move to put those up for sale, so to speak, to generate funds. And I think there was some discussion about, well, maybe we could do it ourselves, maybe we couldn't. I think that landed once they got the analysis that the expense would be too much, similar to how we've discussed what the replacement cost of Frida Zamba would be, to the tune of $20+ million. So I think that landed with them that, hey, the YMCA is probably the best cost-effective way to go forward. But then since then, I have not seen a single thing publicly to tell us where they're going with that. And
Well,
so
maybe they spend all their money in legal fees, fighting the MPD. I don't know, but I think we can keep it. My recommendation would be to keep it in place and find out if we get more information from the school district. And if not, we still have an opportunity to remove it at first read.
yeah, I sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I agree. I support the project in general because I think it's a good ROI. It's better than what we could do ourselves in terms of this public-private partnership. If we were to try to undertake this ourselves, it would cost 20 to 30 million, and I think that was based on an estimate from 2022. There was a design and plan done to see what it would cost to refurbish and what it would cost to build this on our own. And we don't have the capability of spending that much money on this, unfortunately. So the next best thing I think is this. So I think it's a good plan, but we just need confirmation that they're in as well.
I would like to get consensus from council to have staff send to us other comparable Olympic-sized pools that have been built in the last year for those costs, because we're basically taking the $6 million at face value. We haven't done any research. We haven't seen any analysis as to what this will actually cost.
I think that's our portion of it, though, right? Because the YMCA is going to be investing too. Your research, was it about the whole facility and everything encompassed in it?
The pool, no, that's not right. The pool is what is being funded by city council and school district. The rest of the facility, and this is out of the board's mouth in my meetings with them, if we decided to not put a single dime towards the YMCA pool, the YMCA itself is still getting built.
Okay.
So this is just for the pool.
All right.
They would build it without the
They
pool,
would
is
build
what
it
you're
without the
saying.
pool, yeah.
Didn't we get state allocation for this project as well?
We got $250,000
Right,
state
that's what I thought.
appropriation. I think that was to cover, I haven't seen the write-up yet, but I think that was for like permit
Design.
fees, impact fees and whatnot.
The issue with the school board is it's going to be a complete changeover. So between now and up to the election, I don't know what we're going to get out of the school board and then after the election, but we could come back and amend the budget, right? To do what we need to do with that money.
Sure, always.
At the north and south. There you go. Yep, there you go.
Do we have consensus for staff to research?
Yes, I have no problem with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to see if there are other options.
So one of our
We can always compare.
consultants that we have on continuing service consultant actually had worked with Central YMCA and others across the country, I believe, and built some Ys, and that's who gave us our pricing in 22. So we can revisit him and see if he's got some more current projects that were bid out.
Yeah, and I want to make
But I don't know if I can find just a pool, but I'll see what I can do.
Well, and that's where I was going. So I think it's important that we're comparing the cost of not just a pool facility itself, right? Because there are pools that have certain stadium seating and other kind of bells
Yeah,
and
they have
whistles.
locker rooms because they're
Yeah.
competition style pools and stuff.
Right, whereas here, the YMCA is already built, right? It's already got the brick and mortar of the YMCA. So we should literally just be looking at the cost of the pool.
We'll see. What
All of my analysis generally is based on that study that was done, I think, like I said, in 22, that it outlined the cost to refurbish was actually more than the cost to tear it all down and
Free to
rebuild.
Zamba, because they don't, there's a whole slew of things, yeah.
Madam Vice Mayor? And also, would you like me to still continue on with getting that census of where they stand as a board? Okay, I'll take care of that. Thank you.
Pools are, we built our small little pool in '08 for $25,000. That's without a bird cage.
That's 100,000 now.
100,000 now. Easy. Okay, Carl.
We can, I'll speak to Aquatic Management Plus that did refurbished our splash pad design. They were the design firms and they work nationwide or worldwide, and I'll also reach out to them too.
Thank you, sir.
So that wraps up the capital projects funds.
Thank you, Carl.
Okay, thank you, Carl. We will now move on to the remaining funds. The Community Development Block Grant Fund accounts for several programs, including housing rehab assistance to the community. The budget to support is to support the CDBG plan that was presented to you by Jose Papa at the July 21st business meeting. The Police Education Fund budget is $9,000 and is used for specialized deputy training. These funds are collected from fines within the city through the clerk of court and then submitted to the sheriff's office. The Disaster Reserve Fund is used to account for any federal assistance usually associated with hurricanes. The fiscal year 2026 amount of $486,000 is for the Hurricane Milton and Dorian expenses. We don't budget for disasters, so you will not see a budget for fiscal year 2027. The Special Events Fund budget is approximately $179,000 and is funded by the recycling revenue from our solid waste contract. Some of the current events planned for these funds are Holiday Parade, Arbor Day, July 4th fireworks, and tree lighting ceremony. Usage of this fund helped continue to provide quality events and programs for the residents of Palm Coast. The Neighborhood Stabilization Program budget is $121,000. This is the balance left in this fund, and the community development staff is currently working with the respective state agencies to transfer it to the CDBG program. The Developer Special Projects Fund budget for fiscal year 2027 is $50,000, and this is for the tree fund. The Health Insurance Fund budget for fiscal year 2027 is $12.1 million, is where we account for costs related to our employees' health benefits, including claims, administrative fees, stop-loss insurance, wellness programs, and other related expenses. There was an increase of $211,000 for the fiscal year 2026 budget for health insurance claim increases. The Emergency Communications Fund supports the city's use of the 800 megahertz radio network, which is operated and maintained by Flagler County. The city pays a subscriber fee to the county for each active radio on the network. While the fire department is the primary user, the system is also utilized by other city field crew for essential operations. For fiscal year 2026, increase is due to the mock alert system upgrade that was approved by council. For fiscal year 2027, the fund reflects a slight increase due to an increase in the subscriber fee charged by the county. The city is allocating approximately $138,000 this year to be reserved specifically for its share in the system upgrade, which all network users are contributing toward this shared investment.
So $130,000 is being put in addition to what we're seeing here?
No, it's included in
It's
this
included,
number.
okay.
Mhm.
The Special Events Fund, if we did not have that fund, where would those recycling monies go?
It would remain with the solid waste fund and help support the program,
What program?
the solid waste program. So your contract, the costs associated with the contract and the staff that's paid out of that budget.
So it would roll over into paying the contract.
Yes, it would remain in the fund. We would leave it in the solid waste and collection fund.
How, sorry, maybe I'm just not grasping that. How is it that we can use those monies to fund special events?
So part of the program, when you adopted the, when you signed the agreement for the solid waste collection, the portion of recycling, and this was even with the previous vendor, was allocated by council for special events purpose. I think there's like a 2% of the recycling fees that gets allocated for this purpose.
So at any time, can council reallocate those monies as it sees
Oh,
fit?
absolutely. Yes, I would think so. I mean, we can review it with legal, but I would think that those are unrestricted revenues, and it'd be at your pleasure if you wanted to assign them to something else.
Okay, so that gets to my question. Are they restricted or unrestricted? And
I believe they're
guess I should have
unrestricted.
just asked that at
Yes.
the beginning. Okay, sorry about the going around my elbow to get to my backside. Okay, so At what point would we have to reallocate those monies? And let me be very, it's not that I want to get rid of special events, but I think we have to really seriously prioritize. And it's my opinion that really special events should be sponsored by some of our big stakeholders in the community, larger corporations, et cetera. It's done like that oftentimes in many communities. But at what point, because right now we have budgeted $179,000 for special events.
So the revenue from the collections is $90,000. The balance is sponsorships, interest, and then carryover that we might have.
Okay, so 90,000 is really what we're talking about reallocating.
That is correct.
Got it, okay. All right, well, to your point, Mayor, you and Councilman Miller will be on this board next year, so I'm not going to propose with 2 months left that I make a decision as to how these monies are allocated, but at least in the future, you all can keep an eye on that and make a determination as to whether or not you as council want to reallocate those while prioritizing needs.
Anything else, Ms. Ragsdale?
So next we will move on to fund balance, and I will turn it over to Helena.
So fund balance is simply the excess of revenues over expenditures. The City of Palm Coast has a fund balance policy that has been approved by City Council. The usage is for emergencies or one-time expenditures. It is not meant to fund continuing operations. We have policies for the general fund, our utility, stormwater, collection, sanitations, disaster reserve, and the fleet fund. Contingency reserves is the appropriation of funds to cover unforeseen events, unexpected costs, fluctuations in revenues and expenditures, and emergencies. Whereas your fund balance appropriations represent fund balance carryovers used as a funding source. For example, carryovers in the capital projects funds are used to fund future projects. So this is the look at our major operational funds fund balance policy. The general fund utility stormwater policy states that we should have a balance of 10 to 20% of following year's budgeted expenditures. For fleet, the minimum is the total expected fleet replacement cost divided by the average life. This chart also goes over the policy if the balance is over 20 or if it falls under the 10%. As of the last audited fiscal year, 2025, all funds were in compliance or exceeded the fund balance policy. As we move forward with the budget presentation, we will analyze and incorporate any usage according to council's consideration. So, as you can see on this slide, these are some of the options that are available to fund the CRA land purchase from the settlement agreement approved by City Council at the August 19th special meeting. As you can see from the timeline, City Manager executed the agreement on August 20th, and the escrow deposit payment was made yesterday, August 24th. As outlined previously, the options that we have available are as follows. You could temporarily reduce your general fund reserve goal. Right now, our policy is 10 to 20%, but our budgetary goal has been for years to stay at the 25%, as recommended by the Government Finance Officers Association. So you could reduce that reserve goal temporarily to 20%. You can initiate the process of establishing a general fund line of credit up to $15 million. You could assign any future general fund reserves over the 25% goal to debt repayment and any interest payments. Amend the CRA plan to clearly delineate the use of the TIF dollars for repayment to the general fund. Assign any future CRA dollars to the repayment of the line of credit and any interest incurred, and initiate a marketing plan for sale of prime parcels.
Go right ahead, sir.
Just as far as the temporarily reduce the general fund reserve goal from 25%. The 25% is a policy situation for the city. The resolution of the county is the reserve should be between 10 and 20%, and I looked into what the state recommends. The state recommends a minimum 10 to 15%. So I think in order to reduce the amount of interest we're going to have to pay to cover the cost of the land acquisition that we've agreed to now, we've paid the first $1 million, I would think we could even reduce the reserve down to 15% to reduce some of the additional costs of borrowing money.
I'm sorry, go right.
That's my point. In other words, that 25% number and the 20% number are decisions we can make. And I personally, I think going to 15% at this point, in the end, will save us money in the long run.
I kind of along the same line as you, but Helena, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hit the mic. But when it comes to this, it's about best practices, right? And what's the best practices for the reserves?
The best practice and recommendation for the reserves is the 25%. That's why it's been our budget goal, and it has been for a few years. But your policy is 10 to 20%, your adopted resolution policy.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to just jump in and say that, yeah, best practice is 25% to maintain, but when you have that one-time thing over 15, 20 years that you've got to dip into it, you shouldn't evaluate that at what we should be at best practice, right?
I'm just, and I'm trying to think when we had this discussion. Industry-wide, the best practice is 25 or 20%? It's 25?
25%.
And we're above 25% now.
We are currently above.
Okay.
We're at 28.39,
Yeah.
and that's the $2.5 million that was at your discussion to be used in the budget.
Yeah, that's the $2.5 million. Okay, I just wanted to clarify
But
that.
to drop to 20%, you'd be looking at 5.7 million.
5.7, exactly. And at 15?
At 15,
You'd have to do the math.
You're at 9 million.
9 million?
Yes, you would
Okay.
have 9 million available.
That is very significant. Yeah. So what do you need from any other discussion from the council? Because
Well,
it's direction.
I'd like to know, we're talking about these options, but, and I've mentioned it before, what's the cost of capital here? If we're using line of credit, what does that look like? If we're using CRA bonds, what's that look like in terms of cost of credit? To make these decisions, there should be an evaluation of what costs us more, right?
So in order for us to get a real cost on what your line of credit is going to be, we're going to have to go out for RFP, right? And receive bids from different banks. Talking to the financial advisor or Hilltop Securities, they're expecting a variable rate around the 4.9%. As far as the TIF dollars, as you saw presented by council, by Carl earlier to council, those funds will start being available, I believe, in 2029, and he has them outlined as repayment to the general fund. Currently, I don't believe that we would be able to go out and borrow this type of dollars on the TIF just because there isn't sufficient revenue to support that loan.
Yeah, no, I remember the conversation was, I think initially there was an expectation that we could have borrowed some of the balance, and I think by the second meeting that had been reduced and what we
That is correct.
could expect. But if we're doing that, then that cost of capital is much lower, right? Because it's over potentially a longer time span, right?
So if we were to be able to borrow through the CRA, because it expires in 2034, you would have up until 2034 to pay for it. But once you incorporate the maintenance costs that's coming with the properties, right, and the CDD bond obligation that's coming with the properties, as well as the potential reduced revenue for being tax-exempt properties, it didn't really allow us to go out and borrow significantly from the CRA.
But so those expenses exist regardless of whether we're borrowing from the CRA or not to pay for these properties. So why would they be a factor in the CRA's ability to bond?
So by the purchase of the properties, the CDD bonds and maintenance of those, the properties that we are purchasing now become an obligation of the city. Maybe Marcus can help me explain.
I understand.
better.
What I'm saying is that if we had 15 million in reserves we could use tomorrow to buy it, those expenses still exist, right? So
That is correct, yes. Sorry, apologize.
so any version of borrowing money to those expenses still exist. So why would some versions allow for borrowing money and this would not?
Because you're using, in borrowing for government, you really can't use the asset as collateral, right? You pledge the revenues as collateral. So you'd have to have a 2.0 coverage. As you add expenditures to that budget, it reduces your available revenues. It reduces your opportunity to have that 2-point coverage. So it reduces the amount of money that you can borrow.
Okay, I think that helps. Essentially, when we're talking about it, it has to be pledged revenues. It can't be assets as
Correct.
backstop for it. So then that makes more sense on why it would prevent potential borrowing on those revenues.
Correct.
Helena, quick and dirty math. If the council decided to take out a $12 million bond or loan against our general fund, which is, I think, a terrible idea, what is the interest on that over the next 3 years? That would have to come out of our general fund.
So assuming the variable rate of 4.9, not knowing what the Fed's going to do as far as interest rates in the future, but if everything was held constant, it would probably be about the $650,000, I would say.
So get ready for
Give
that.
or take.
You guys are going to have to fund that.
That's my point, to reduce the amount of money we're gonna borrow.
What you're basically saying, if I get you right, is you take,
9.
reduce the level to 15%, put that 9 million towards it, and then finance the rest.
Right, and there'll be some saving in doing that.
Yeah, because it's like,
Because we don't have to immediately, we're not on the hook for the reserve money.
Yeah.
It's not a loan.
and the sooner we can move the properties, the better.
Right. And the sooner we move the properties, they have value, but we can't use it, as you indicate, for the collateral.
can't use it
but
as
they
collateral.
still have some value.
Yes. You had something, Councilman Gambaro?
I see the value of what Councilman Sullivan is presenting.
So
If we go down to 15%, how many months does that fund our budget?
So if we go down to 15%, give me 1 second, I think we'll be around the 10 million fund balance. And depending on how much we need to cover expenditures for October and November, because basically your tax checks start coming in at the end of November. That's when you receive the bulk, is, December, basically. So you need to give yourself enough coverage for cash flow. So if you're figuring a $70 million budget, not all of expenses constant, I get that, but maybe you're looking for at least 4 million, 4.5 million a month. It would be pretty close to that 10 million target. You're not leaving yourself a lot of wiggle room.
So 2 months.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What was the number, 20%?
The number at 20% will leave us with 13.5. So you'd have a little bit more cushion. Now, when we try to go out for this line of credit, we'll try our best to make it no prepayment penalty. So if you wanted to, later on, you can make the decision to put more funds towards it.
more money towards the principal.
Correct.
Okay.
And then
You could give yourself that opportunity.
everything we're talking about right now, so what happens to the other SAP projects that we had? So we had other things that we were going to put which it's now increased by $200,000 because we reduced city manager's contingency. What happens to those other projects? Is council willing to forego everything else that we talked about using fund balance? So roads, animal shelter, potential My Healthcare on Site, which, by the way, would in long term reduce our healthcare insurance costs a lot, which comes out of our general fund. I mean, what's council's intent with all those?
Well, I don't think any of us up here had anything to do with the lawsuit.
Well, no, that's true.
And so we have this one time, and I'm afraid it's an emergency. And that's what reserves are there for. This is not a hurricane, but it essentially, in some ways, financially, has the same kind of impact. Although, for this money, we at least get the land. We get something back. It's not just money we dump in the ocean.
Yeah, I think, when talking about risk, certainly this has impacts, right, to those things that you're talking about. But, you know, there's another risk for a judgment for $35 million against us with nothing. There's another risk for a win that doesn't really do anything except for accelerate our legal fees that we have to pay. And then we still have a landowner that won't work with us in Town Center. So there's, you know, someone said it earlier, but I think at the last meeting, but it's 3 different non-preferred options. And I think this is the one that we've decided has the most benefit to us. And I know that that means that we have to make tough decisions about other things in the budget that we had hoped to use these for as well. But in my eyes, having control over this is better than, you know, kind of waiting for something to happen and hoping. And the other 2 options, to me, don't really give us a win in either regard. It's a tough decision. It is. And it definitely does have impacts on things that we hope to do.
Well, I mean, look, I don't want to rehash what the decision was last week. The decision was what it was. I don't agree with it, but we can't change it at this point. I'm looking about going forward. So going forward, I don't agree with reducing our reserves down to 15%. I think that's dangerous, particularly being the fact that we've got hurricane season right around the corner, or actually it's here technically. Yeah, I just don't agree with that. I think if you guys want to reduce the contingency down to, the fund balance down to 20%, okay, that gives you an extra $5 million in some change. I still don't think that we should be putting all of our fund balance into this. This is literally putting all of your eggs in one basket, and everything else is just falling by the wayside. There's other things that we had decided as a group were on our strategic action plan, and I just disagree with casting those all aside at this point for this one project. So, I mean, I think that we should put more money aside for roads. I think we should put more money aside for the animal shelter. We're having the meeting with the county tomorrow to talk about what that looks like. So maybe we have until September 9th, right? Okay.
That is correct.
September 9th to make an ultimate decision. But I really hope that council, talks with staff and comes back with a decision to look at some of these other things and still funding them. Because we can't, I don't think as a council, we can't say we, as 5 people, are going to cast aside all of the other things that we know are important to our community for this. Just wholeheartedly disagree with that line of thinking. So I get that we don't want to, I don't want to take out a loan at all. And I understand the thought process of reducing down to 15%. I just think that that's not financially very smart. But I get it. I understand the argument for it. I just would hope that council will look at the other strategic action priorities that we had decided were very important to us and think about not putting all of this money into this settlement.
Okay, that's a good thought, but the point is whether we go 20% or 15% on the reserves, all those things you talked about we'd like to do still don't come about. What we've just done is approved a budget for the next year. We've got a new council coming in on November 17th. I think that council will be tasked with many, many hard, tough decisions, but we'll have more information as to where we're going on Amendment 3, impact fees, and other court cases. So I think that the difference between 20 and 15 does not really support, Vice Mayor, the idea that you're going to do other things. Either way, we're not going to be able to have money to do additional things that are not funded in what will be the 27 budget. So I just think I think we should cut that down as much as possible on the amount of money it's going to cost to get to buy this land, which we've made the decision to do. So that's my basis for the 20 to 15, and to reduce the overall cost of the project. We also have another Amendment 3 that's on the ballot for this time, which is where we would change the $15 million 3-year repayment proposal to 30-year, $30 million capability. We could always go there in the future if things got pushed to shove and we just couldn't come up with the money in any other way. So I just think that this decision doesn't have much to do with other strategic things that we'd like to do at this point. And those decisions will be made by the next council, not this council.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if
Yes,
I
sir.
could, I've got our strategic action plan here from our previous meeting, and I was just going through it to kind of look at, just listening to your argument on, what things we would and wouldn't be funding. So I'm going to go down through them. Objective 1, prioritize Palmco's infrastructure to address current needs and anticipated future growth. This council has made hard decisions all year long and last year to invest in our infrastructure, and our capital improvement plan reflects that. Design and implement a citywide plan for road and repair. Carl just briefed on $1 million and how we would tackle 2 of those per year, and we've been focused on it continuously. Enhance current economic development efforts. With the applicant withdrawn the landowner withdrawn their application for the westward expansion, this is all we've got. We've talked about lands and buildings. And without, these, we've got a few parcels, but this would give us the appropriate lands and buildings that I think to move forward. And I think this decision coincides with strong, resilient economy and doing everything we can to diversify the tax base that we all want to do as a council and as a community. Implement the Parks Master Plan. Well, we just also, we set aside $300,000 for a skate park, and we're continuing to push forward, ensuring that we have and sustaining the parks and recreation amenities that we have. Design and produce technology improvement plan focused on technology for city government. We're focused on that, and we have funded that. Saltwater canal and dredging. That's one that, may not, it's a priority, but, that's one, Vice Mayor, that may be an issue as far as funding. But, the next council could continue to make it a legislative priority. Maybe we get some state appropriations for it. Supporting it, cultures, historical initiatives, facilities. We're doing that. Quality of life for essential workers. We're doing that in this budget. Safe and reliable services. We're doing that.
How are we doing that? We didn't even fund additional sheriff's deputies. Please, Councilman Gambaro, tell me how we're doing the last 2 priorities. I want specifics, because I don't agree with you.
I have an answer on that. The citizens of Palm Coast are going to fund 80% in their taxes of for the 4 deputies the county is providing in their budget. 80% of the money that will pay for those 4 deputies will come from the citizens of Palm Coast. It's just the way the money works out when we pay our county tax.
I recognize that, Councilman Sullivan. I do, and I make that argument all the time. But we as a council a long time ago, and look, if the council wants to change it, then they have the ability to change it. But we decided that we wanted an enhanced services contract so that we could get deputies in the city. Those deputies that you're talking about, ask the county. Those are going into unincorporated. So I hear what you're saying, and I know the arguments against it. I usually am on that side of making that argument. But I know for a fact that we need deputies in our
I don't think it's a
zones.
crisis. You keep saying that. It's not a crisis.
I didn't say it was a crisis.
It is not a crisis. The crime rate is down, which the sheriff continually tells us it's down 40%. It's not a crisis, and it's not a one-time cost.
The word crisis never came out of my mouth. But we're going
not
through
an
the stat
emergency.
priorities. I
It's
didn't
not
say
an
it was an
emergency.
emergency either. We made a commitment. That's my point. But going through these points, first of all, sites and buildings, we're talking about pad-ready sites. Nothing that we've done with regards to this settlement agreement has created a pad-ready site. Nothing. We are still reliant on private equity to come in and do that for us, just like we were if we didn't buy the land. With regards to diversifying the tax base, with this land, we're not diversifying the tax base. We just took on a liability, which, by the way, we're not getting tax revenues for now. So again, I don't want to rewind the clock and talk about the decision to purchase the land. That's done. What I am trying to make sure is that we are not putting all of our eggs in this one basket and casting aside everything else that we decided was important to us. Matter of fact, we went to Tallahassee and said that an animal shelter was so important to this board that we're going to ask for appropriations for it. And we got the appropriations, and now we are not putting any skin in the game to dedicate money. So all I'm asking.
But we didn't with the budget we just went through either, which is for 27.
Because it has to come from
None
fund
of
balance.
us, you will not be here, I will not be here, and Charlie will not be here.
It is our job.
It's going to
though,
be the
set-
decision of the council that's coming in November to move forward with the city. In the future, we can't fix everything now.
I get that, Councilman Sullivan, but we have a job to set the fiscal year 27 budget with the current fund balance. And that current fund balance, put all of this other stuff aside, when we started this process, that current fund balance was $2.1 million. It's now increased to about 2.3 because of cutting down the city manager's
But we didn't know about this one-time emergency funding we were going to have to do, and we've already said we're going to do it.
I understand that. What I'm saying is there are other options besides using the entire fund balance towards this one initiative. And I am asking council to consider the other things that we had decided were important to us rather than putting every single penny into this purchase. That's all I'm
We're
asking.
not putting every single penny.
We are.
No, we're not. We're either putting out of reserves 20% at the 20% level, the 15% level. I'm just saying there's really not going to affect much else than that, other than the fact we'll pay less interest cost for the use of that money. And I think that going from $5 to $9 million out of reserves significantly lowers the cost of what it's going to cost overall to do the purchase.
I would like to clarify what you said, Vice Mayor, about the deputies that are being funded by the county. That a proportionate share of those deputies should be coming to the city. We're paying, but
I know, Mayor. I know, I got it, but it's
well,
still 80%.
no, I'm not. I'm
It's
just
still 80% of the
yeah,
cost.
yeah. I'm saying I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying proportionately, the city's paying, so that should be some of the coverage for the city as far as the county as a whole. That's what you're trying to say.
But that aside, I mean, I'm not even talking about the public safety portion of this at this point. I mean, he was just breezing through the SAP as if we've already, oh, check the box, check the box. I disagree with that. That's the only reason I bring it up. My discussion at this point is, what are we bringing up, or what are we paying for that we had agreed were important things to fund with our fund balance? And now we're not doing anything with those monies, and I just disagree with that. I think that there are other things besides this. We can do other things with that money. We do not have to take our entire fund balance and put it towards the purchase of this property. We don't. We can decide to pay for other things at the same time and keeping in line with our strategic action plan. If the next council wants to come in and put more monies towards the paying off the settlement agreement, hopefully with no prepayment penalty, and for the fiscal year 28 budget, that's their prerogative. Today, as we sit here, it's our job to come up with a fiscal year 27 budget. And all I'm asking is that this council not use every penny for this purchase. That's it. So
Okay,
we have to find
the language is important here. It's a very small, it's the $2.5 million you're talking about. And we just know that for the collector roads, they are in the way things are going right now, all 6 of the priority collector road pavings will be done if we do nothing more than what we've already agreed.
Sure, I agree with that. But we can put another $1 million towards roads and get more done.
I don't think it makes much of an impact on the overall.
Well, we're millions of dollars behind in our pavement management
I agree.
program. So,
That's
I mean,
my point.
every
We're
single
millions
penny.
and millions of dollars behind.
Oh, so let's
One
just
more
not
million
put-
isn't going to make much of a difference.
That's a terrible
Compared to
argument.
what the other requirements are right now.
Helena, can our next meeting, can you give us some scenarios and how it will look if we went with the 15% or the 9 mil towards it, and just let us be able to war game it? We have a meeting next week. Do we have one?
I'm sorry.
Say
Speaking
again?
to the mic. So
Need to start executing.
Yeah. So I guess my first question is, Elena, how much time do you need?
I need direction to move forward with the RFP for the line of credit up to 15 million so that we can put it out on the street, hopefully this week. Give enough time for banks to
look at our proposal and give us some options.
Options. So do we
That
have?
is correct.
So I'm okay with the 20%.
Do we have consensus to have?
We don't have to make the 20% decision because
No,
if we're
but I'm
doing
just
up
saying
to 15
She's
million,
going for the total 15 mil that's allowed by charter.
and then we'll have the flexibility to use whatever we want.
Yes.
And then maybe at your next first public hearing, you can let us know how much you really want to draw down on that line of credit. But I do need consensus on
You have,
You have mine.
moving forward with the line of credit.
you have that, but could you war game it?
Absolutely.
Could you war game it for us to see what our options are? Okay, are we good on that? We're good? Okay.
Do you need anything else, Alina, on that?
Can we go back to? No, because at that point, you can determine what your general fund balance could be, and then we can write the resolution to reflect that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And we also have, you'll be moving over to county. You might be able to help us out on this, Councilwoman. If we extend the CRA, because most people know that I wanted to get rid of the CRA, but in this case, because all those properties are in the CRA, it's better to use funds from the CRA to pay for that purchase and do something within the CRA, be productive in the CRA. But it expires 2034.
That is correct.
So that's the hard deadline we're up against, and a 3-year borrowing limit for the 15 mil.
Just for our knowledge, an extension of the CRA would be a 10-year extension, is that correct?
Is there a minimum or maximum?
I think there's the max. I think it's 2044, but I'm not the. I don't know the
So it would
exact
be
year.
about 10 years.
Yeah.
If we were to be able to extend it, it would only extend to 2044.
Yeah, and I think someone mentioned something about, and maybe it was you, Councilman Gambaro, as far as incorporating some other lands on the south end, on the south side of State Road 100.
Yeah, Roger, I think it's.
Yeah, okay.
I do have to, if we could go back to the previous slide, point out that the amendment to the CRA plan to delineate the use of those dollars for the repayment to the general fund, that would also have to occur. So basically that and our line of credit.
You need guidance from that.
You have
Go ahead and
consent for that.
figure that one out too. We have consensus on that?
Yeah, okay, go ahead, sorry.
Okay, we have consensus. So you got everything you need?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
What else do we have on the slides? Next hearing?
Just yet reminding you and the public of our first public hearing, Wednesday, September 9th, here at City Hall at 5:15. And then your final public hearing to adopt the final millage and budget here at City Hall on Wednesday, September 23rd, also at 5:15. That concludes our presentation.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Anything else for finance? No one has anything for finance? This is
Mr. Mayor.
something I'd like.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry.
I believe Chief Deputy Strobe was wanting to speak with y'all.
Chief, you have something you'd like to say?
Yes, if you don't mind.
No, go right ahead.
Mark Strobridge, Flathead County Sheriff's Office. Thank you for your indulgence. I did get that phone call about 2 o'clock this morning. So I was standing in the B section shortly thereafter, and what it kind of did is it reminded me of my duty and what I need to do. I just want to go over a brief history, if I can. In 2020 and then again in 2022, we provided a University of North Florida study to this council. And to back up, because you guys have done a great job for us, and we're very appreciative because you've done your duties in that. To back up, though, for many years, if you look at a sheet there, you'll see some blue and orange bars there. Now, that last bar on the far right is this fiscal year when we were planning for that. And I don't know how it became blue and orange unless the person was from Florida State that did that. But to say all that, there have been many councils. Many councils before y'all who didn't do the right thing. And what we are currently still working on are our deficit deputies based on a 2022 study. So here is what I will say to respond to a couple of quick things. Every deputy sheriff that we can add is a benefit because it reduces that. And I fully understand the consternation of what's going to happen with Amendment 3. I fully understand it. So what I would come back and propose is that if you were to decide to fund any deputies, fund them for the last 6 months of the year. Amendment 3 happens, we renegotiate the contract. Would be a proposal to put out there, whatever that number looks like, so we can continue to chip away at the deficit. We are going to be doing a new study next year, and since 2022, our population's increased. Since 2022, our calls for service have increased. And yes, our crime rate is absolutely positively down. But that doesn't address traffic. That doesn't address other quality of life issues within our community, including what's going to be our response times. Now, if Amendment 3 comes through, we're all in trouble. We're going to worry about stormwater. We're going to be worried about fixing the roads. We're going to worry about public safety across the board. But those other councils have kicked the can down the road and left you guys with a raw deal here at the end. Just like you had mentioned earlier, all these things that happened before was not really this council. So my ask and my consideration, would like you to reconsider that if we get into a position, if we chip away 1, 2, 9, whatever the number may be, and we delay the funding of those positions either at the six-month mark or at the last 3 quarters, that gives us time to find out what really is going to happen in this process, but still adds to the numbers. As an update, you know, the county is funding those. The sheriff intends to take one of those actually and do an animal cruelty investigator and increase that, because that's a growing problem within our community. And I'll be back with you all tomorrow in the joint session on those related issues. But that would be my ask, is that you consider that funding mechanism, and then it can be readdressed after Amendment 3 if it passes. That's, you know, anything that we chip away for the authorization, please consider that.
Are you able to get us the costs of what that would look like, so per deputy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I can. And you know, your numbers aren't too far off. If you're talking about funding for a half a year, you're talking about $320,000 for 2 deputies for a half a year. So if you wanted to push it even further, it makes it a little more difficult, but we could do that. Of course, just like last year, there'll be, you know, the expectation is full funding for the following year. But it would be after that Amendment 3 and the last polling that I saw on August 8th, polling indicates it fails. But there will be something coming down the road, because everybody wants tax reform and should happen. So does anybody have any questions regarding that?
Anybody have any questions of Chief? I'm sorry you had to wait around so long, Chief.
No. I thank you for your indulgence, because as I said, my morning started very, very early and such. And, you know, it just so also happens that today, 99 years ago, Deputy Sheriff Son Durrance lost his life in the line of duty in a shooting. Our second person, he was trying to apprehend Sheriff Perry Hull, who had been killed 3 days earlier. So we think about those things, remember them, and honor those. And, you know, that we had a pretty horrific scene out there early this morning with a tragedy.
Thank you, Chief. Yeah, I was up about 5:30. The news, one of the news stations out of Orlando had the story on their, popped up on my Facebook before I got the notification. I'm like, man, they're all over it. I don't know if somebody calls them and says, you got a shooting here. So, all right, thank you so much.
Just to be clear, there is no safety issues with the community. It was all contained right there at the scene. So we're not looking for anybody else, okay?
Yes, sir, thank you. And Jacksonville radio station reported that too. They reported it and they said there was no threat to the public. So anything else from the council for anyone? This is something this is for the public in general. This is my neighbor's trim notice that he received. And I'm looking at the numbers and the things well, let me point this out first. Among Florida cities that are in the lower to middle tier, which Palm Coast is, Palm Coast is 60% cheaper than any of those other cities. Among cities with populations of 100,000 population, Palm Coast is one of the lowest. Plantation, Florida, their millage rate is 5.19. Sunrise, Florida, theirs is 6.05. Pompano Beach, 5.19. West Palm Beach, 8.13. Our city is the lowest, so that shows you how low, and even with some of the issues I've had with past councils and stuff like that, this city has done the right thing by its residents as far as tax. They've continually rolled back the millage rate, and within the county, our city millage rate, unless I made a mistake somewhere, our millage rate is lower than Bunnell and Flagler Beach. The only one that is lower than us, which is a hamlet that is a dependa, as far as I'm concerned, is Beverly Beach. So the councils, even this council and councils of the past, have been doing what they're supposed to do. For my neighbor, his property, his market value of his property, he lost $21,000 in market value on his property this past year, or this year. His assessed value went up $7,000. But for this individual Palm Coast resident, his portion of his tax bill from the county is 21% of the total tax bill, meaning that the school board, the school millage rate is higher than our, combined, the two that are on there, are higher than our city's millage rate. His total tax bill, as assessed right now, for the city of Palm Coast by itself is $853. The remainder of his tax bill, which is $3,051, is on the county and the schools and all the other special taxing districts. So for the Palm Coast residents, I just want them to know that we are doing the best we can, and we are making sacrifices, non-sacrifices in deputies, not adding staff that the staff feels we need. We're doing what we can as a council, and I just want the public to know when they're raising hell about their tax bill, only 21% of this, your ad valorem, your tax assessment, comes from the city of Palm Coast. I just want to clarify that for everyone. Does anyone have anything else?
No, I think I just wanted to add, and those are good points. I did a ton of research in the past year in regards to where we stand in terms of millage rates in comparison to other cities. And as you said, just to even add to it, I looked at population based for the state. In the state, I think we're 320th out of 400 something cities. Overall millage rate. As you said, in the county, we're the lowest except for Beverly Beach, which basically they use that to fund their seawall. That's pretty much it, I think. So then I was like, okay, local area, right? So Volusia, Putnam, St. John's, and Flagler. I think we're 23rd out of 25 to include Beverly Beach, which we've already discussed, and then DeBary. And DeBary is a town of about 32,000, I think. So they're slightly lower than us. I think they're like 3.8 or something to that effect. But in comparison with our local area, the state, our county, our neighbors, we're lower than pretty much everybody else for the most part.
And we do not have those additional charges, non-ad valorem, like fire service fees and stuff like that, on our tax bill. We are one city, even I think in the county, we don't have that utility fee. We don't have the FP&L franchise fee, and we don't have a fire fee. So Palm Coast, we, as a government, as a staff, we're doing what we can to keep taxes low.
The only franchise fee, I think, is the commercial waste franchise fee, which is charged on, the business dumpsters, essentially.
Yes. Anything else from the rest of the council? Nothing? Okay, and we're going to open it up for public comment, Mr. Attorney Man. So we're going to open it up for public comment. If you have any comments concerning the budget presentation as presented, please come forward. Yes, sir, Mr. Stansel.
I was noticing the name change for code enforcement to community compliance. That sounds really nice. My question is it being reformed? I used to sit on the code enforcement board, and I saw problems, and I talked to citizens in the community, and they don't feel it's been equitable because it's been reactive as opposed to proactive. Why have city codes if you're not going to enforce them equally within the city? I'm just wondering, it's probably something for the city manager to think about. Is that going to be changed? Are we going to be more proactive and make it equal for the whole city and make it fair? Because it's not, and citizens complain about it all the time. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Mansell. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Jeannie Duarte. We don't budget for disasters, yet you want to reduce our reserves. The presentation actually does not show history. The actuals and the previous figures are missing. I can see a bunch of waste right here in front of me on the dais as far as your compensation. That's a good way to reduce. Impact fees should be collected up front. The fleet is out of control. I would not reinstate the attorney's contract for various reasons. The manager contract has a clause in it that you cannot cut his wage without cutting across the board. I say let's cut across the board and renegotiate the upper management in all departments and put a cap on them. The State Amendment 3 is coming up, and without knowing the results, you put a rollback rate higher than the current rate, which, to keep the same or higher, taxes the homeowners on unrealized gains. When it comes to the Provision 3E, you claim the utilities is an enterprise fund. The enterprise fund is supposed to support itself with revenues received. The recent $330 million minus the previous balance goes against the Provision 3E, but you claim it's separate. Right here, I pulled from the city's website the Amendment 3 for the city's Amendment 3 that includes the utilities as a recipient of potential funds. This is a violation, that bond is a violation against the charter that outlines in Provision 3E that exceeds the limit. What else? And that is also outlined in the fund balance along with the fleet and stormwater. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else for public comment? Ladies first, Gary. Yes, ma'am, Miss Mack.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. I came with about 5 items, now I have about 30 literally. So I'm just going to try to generalize it. After watching this, any funds, like especially the one that she talked about, I guess that's what Alphen had a consultant pay to rewrite our trash pickup, recycling statement of work, SOW, because I never did find anything. That must have been what it was. Y'all need to educate yourself on misappropriation of funds. Can't just keep moving funds around all over the place. The only thing that's supposed to be in the utility funds is from our fees. They're not supposed to go elsewhere. So from watching this meeting, anything that's in excess or extra and talking about taking money out of our reserve, it needs to come back to us, we the taxpayers. It's our money, not yours, not the cities, not the developers, not the contractors. It's our money. So any excess money should go back to the utilities to try to reduce some of these fees that you are gouging us with. Who can afford 4% minimum every year for eternity? Nobody. I know I don't get a 4% increase from Social Security disability every year. The other problem is, again, like I said, accounting is over purchasing. She doesn't know anything about contracting. That's a huge problem. Fleet vehicles, you all do a comparison. I've heard of that before in the last couple of years, looking at all this stuff. You're required by law to do a justification why you're getting rid of an asset. I bet there's nowhere in the city documents anything like that. My other suggestion for you all in purchasing here for the city of Palm Coast, if they're listening, because they're never present here, they never use the state vehicle contract, and I don't understand that. It's always more savings because of the huge volume purchased against it across the entire state. They never do that here locally. So y'all need to look into that too. There's so much more. You guys blew my mind again today. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, Mr. Kunis.
When Holland was the mayor, she added funds to the actual water cost that we use, the potable water, to fund dredging of the freshwater canals. And we've been paying that for years. Now I see you've got additional money in there for funding for freshwater canals. Also, when she passed the swale fee increases for that 5-year period, the word maintenance of the saltwater canals was included in that. Over a period of time, maintenance for the saltwater canals suddenly just disappeared overnight from that. I see nothing in this budget about the maintenance of the saltwater canals. We got $400,000 from fine to take care of some of the canals, and I saw Randy the other day, and he's very upset that nothing's been done. Not a thing. We had meetings with Ms. Ponteri about it. We gave her ideas. There were some dock builders involved in that meeting. Carl was involved in that meeting, and nothing has been done. Boats have been getting grounded in the canals. We're still getting a lot of land erosion into the canals from the stone walls that aren't properly installed. Nothing's been done. It's time you people took care of the canals. People who own the canals pay additional taxes for the docks, the walkway down to the canals, or a walkway down to the docks, the sheds if they have them, lifts if they have them. I pay $1,000 a year for the pleasure of having a dock out there. Where is that money going? For years. It should have been put aside for taking care of the canals, but it's wasted on a pork. You got to do something with this because it's got to be added to the budget somewhere. You have the money somewhere, and you know it. It's time to cut some budgeting places else, cut down some salaries, get rid of assistant managers to the manager. We don't need them. You probably cut that. I could see, look at it, I could see cut $5 million off that thing they had up on the board easily, but it's not being done. Where is all that money going? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Here regarding the Parks and Recreation budget. My name is Megan Rizzo.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good morning, Mayor and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. There's been a lot of communication online regarding athletic fields and things like that. That's where this conversation's going. So as you guys consider the Parks and Rec budget, I would like to ask council to look closely at balance, capacity, and what our growing community will need over the next 10 to 20 years. Palm Coast has made some wonderful investments in recreation. We have invested significantly in tennis and pickleball, and those facilities serve an important part of our community. But I believe athletic field capacity needs to become a greater priority in our next round of investment. This is not about baseball versus softball, recreational sports versus travel, or one sport versus another. In fact, I think the disagreements we are beginning to see over field time are really telling us something bigger. We simply need more places for kids to play. Years ago, our community recognized the need and planned additional baseball and softball fields. But since then, Palm Coast has continued to grow and youth sports have evolved tremendously. Recreational leagues are still important, competitive and travel programs have grown enormously, and softball opportunities as well. When several programs are trying to fit into a limited number of fields, scheduling conflicts are almost inevitable. We should not have to solve that by deciding which group of children gets less opportunity. We should solve it by creating more capacity. I would encourage council to consider placing additional fields, baseball and softball, and eventually, more importantly, a larger multi-sport youth complex into the city's capital. This can also generate tournament revenues. we would be looking at between $30,000 to $100,000 per tournament in economic development. So we would be looking at $1.1 to $2.67 million a year, which would further fund the procreation of those future fields and future use. So with all the budget and everything being talked about here, I think that's a resolution that you guys could look to for future monies to come in through the programs. And also, while we're planning new facilities, I want to look at the older parks, the aquatic center. That area over there has had the same playground for over 25 years. The neighborhoods change, but children living in those neighborhoods deserve the same quality recreational spaces as children elsewhere within the city. Our city has demonstrated that it understands the value of investing in recreation, and now we have the opportunity to balance that investment. Let us maintain what we have and modernize the neighborhood parks that we have been waiting their turn and plant additional fields. This does not have to be a conversation about competing. It's a conversation about creating more. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else for public comment? Seeing no one come forward, we'll bring it back to the dais. Carl, can you come up for a second, please? What do you have on saltwater canals? What is our intent with that money that we got from fine?
I'm not aware of any grant dollars we got from Find. I think Find they have Find dollars that we can seek grants for.
It's a matching. It's a matching grant. That's what it is.
So our current Find grant now is at Waterfront Park that we're spending. Randy worked with Find on having dollars available for being able to use those funds more than just the Intercoastal Waterway. Now, we are currently under design. I know Carbrello, I think, is going to be coming to council and give them an update on the saltwater canal design, but you can't go after grant funding unless the design and permits are in hand by a certain date, and we weren't going to be ready to apply for those dollars because all that takes time going through the Corps in the district and was. So we're working through that design process now for dredging the canals, and when we're at a point where we could go after dollars, we will apply for dollars, but we're not at that point yet.
Where are we at? Can you give me a percentage?
I'd say we're close to 50%, I think, near that mark, because they're also doing the shoreline analysis on, some of the sediment infiltration, the disrepair of the shoreline or docks, not docks, but seawalls. So I know that is also happening in tandem with the dredging. So it's in the works. I don't have a specific time frame, but I can get an update in email council.
That's in reference to the potential for policy change on code in terms of seawalls, right? That's what we're talking about when they're doing that.
Correct. That's something, right? Community development is putting forth an item for council's consideration.
I thought that Commissioner Stapleford actually got money specifically allocated for the saltwater.
No, so what he did was they had a definition of how certain funds could be used in the grants, and he got consensus or a vote from from his board to change that wording that would then allow us to be eligible. Prior to that, it could only go to that, the mouth of the intercoastal. We could only use those funds to that, and this allows for it to come within the canals rather than, yeah. And then there's another proposal that he had mentioned too about, it's the park near the yacht club.
Long Creek.
But there's a potential for, if that is not just a...
If it had boat access.
If it had boat access, it would then also, that canal specifically that comes all the way out would also be eligible for certain funds that it previously was not eligible for. So there's kind of two things that opened up some funds, but we haven't gotten the grant. It just now we're eligible to apply for the grant.
Okay. Another question. Did we ever come to a consensus on the unified seawall standard? We haven't. Have you done any research into that, Carl, or your staff? Because the whole point, and I'll refresh your memory a little bit. We said, hey, it's hard to commit funds to dredging, even if you did have them, if you don't stop the bleeding of the runoff from the lots that don't have seawalls. So what can we do? Should we come to consensus and say, We want the city to come up with a unified seawall standard.
I think that is being worked on. There's a team of staff putting that together and
Okay.
have collected information. We were supposed to get our first round of inspections from the consultant end of last week or this week, so I think we're expecting that first round soon.
So it is in the
Staff is
works.
working on that. We did, previous council did set aside $500,000 in our capital improvements fund for saltwater canal dredging, so that could be our match for the grant in a future year, just so you know. And then touching upon the saltwater canal and stormwater, you know, the saltwater canal system isn't part of the stormwater system. When we did the stormwater rate studies in the past, there's never been any capital projects or maintenance dollars tied to maintaining saltwater canals in the stormwater rate. So that's why it's not funded through stormwater. There's never been a project or dollars identified for fund to cover that cost.
All right, thank you, sir. Don't go anywhere, just in case. Any other follow-ups from the council? Anything? Okay, now, Carl, that's it. Okay, let's go with matters not on the agenda. Oh, I'm sorry. That's public comments over. We brought it back to the dais. I'm sorry. We're straight? All right, items not on the agenda from city council. Anyone have anything?
Yeah, I don't think
We
we
didn't do final public comment.
We did public comment
Comment
on
for
the
presentation.
presentation.
Final public comment.
It's not,
That'd be next.
it's not on here. It's only one public comment, that's it.
That was the only issue. That was the only item.
F, public comment, presentation. Okay, I'm sorry. Pause. Our final public comment, as always, if anyone has any final public comment not relating to items on the agenda, please come forward. Yes, sir.
Good morning, y'all. So I'm just going to read this because this 3-minute timer is too short for me. But good morning, Mayor and Council. My name is Neftali DeJesus. I'm a local general contractor, Vice President of the Flagler Home Builder Association, and a local business owner. My family and I own and operate 1621 Building Remodeling, Florida Green Building Construction, Split Oak Ranch, and Sanctuary Spa. Before I begin, I want to say that I am thankful for the city manager and vice mayor who have taken the time to listen and genuinely try to work with me on these issues, and I appreciate that. But I have two serious concerns this morning. First is the commercial hauling ordinance. A commercial waste hauler is a company in the business of collecting and transporting waste for compensation. A self-hauler is different. That's a contractor hauling debris from his own project, a landscaper hauling limbs from a work site, a business transporting waste generally created through its normal operations. The city is proposing that once a self-hauler exceeds 2 cubic yards, that business must register as a city-authorized franchisee, even though waste hauling isn't its business. This is not just a contractor issue. This ordinance broadly covers commercial establishments, including stores, offices, restaurants, warehouses, and agricultural operations. Potentially, we're talking about over 2,000 local businesses. And becoming a franchisee isn't simply registering a truck. There are significant insurance and bonding requirements. The ordinance also allows the city to audit franchisees' books and records with as little as 5 days' notice and provide access to franchisee-related records, vehicle, and equipment. And we still need a clear explanation of enforcement. Are city employees going to inspect trailers, follow trucks, question business owners, or examine private records to determine who crossed 2 cubic yards? We support stopping illegal dumping and regulating actual commercial waste. But hauling your own debris does not make you a garbage company. Give self-haulers a separate, reasonable agreement. My second issue is this, the city's permitting process. I had a building permit. Essentially, I'm going to make this real short. I had a building permit that was submitted and approved by the city, and the city then gave it to the homeowner as a owner build, which I have no problem with owner builders. That's great. I mean, let people do it. But proper procedures were not followed, and to the point that my personal phone number was still on a permit that was issued, the same permit number to my personal business. It was transferred to a homeowner, and the liability was still falling on me because it wasn't properly transferred, and I wasn't properly notified. The city manager's been working on that. He's been doing his best, but we need some answers on proper procedures and proper regulations. I'm not taking the liability for someone else's contracting. That's unacceptable. So that's what I got for y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to request that the city go back out to bid on the trash pickup contract. Oh, I'm sorry. I'd like to request that the city go back out on contract, go out to bid on the trash pickup contract, since the utility rates are going up so much on everybody. If it could be reduced by $15 even a month would be a great help for everybody here, the residents, especially people on fixed incomes. Well, I could go into a lot on that with the trash pickup contract, but I won't. I'll spare you. I know how it needs to be done. Apparently, the purchasing office here and city staff don't know how they can actually ask. If they don't know a better process that makes it more efficient, they can actually request that in the bid package and have the vendor respond that way so they don't have to do the hard brain work. I already know how it should be done, so it would be done efficiently, and equitably and fair. So I'm requesting that. The other point that I wanted to bring up, y'all need to get educated on CPI and how it works. That's Consumer Price Index. They're uneducated. The consultant that got paid $5.5 million to do the utility rate study is uneducated. It's illegal to have that on our utility rate hike. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Jeannie Duarte. Well, I look forward to next week not seeing these two gentlemen still sitting there. Ray Stevens will be seated his proper place as required by the charter. And according to the charter, going from 30 days to 90 days, that means seat 4 gets to stay empty until the general election. So I look forward to that. Thank you for your service, and we don't want to see you back. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else for public comment? Seeing no one come forward, we'll bring it back to the dais. Any follow-ups from city manager?
Yes, I got a few. So on code enforcement, we'll be coming out with some more things aside from our rebranding into community compliance as well. With Mr. DeJesus, we do have some information coming back to you, sir, out of the city attorney's office regarding that second issue. Should be hitting soon, within a matter of days, I'm hoping. Also, to follow up, the majority of our fleet purchases are made using state contract, just as a follow-up from staff as well. And that's all I have for the follow-up right now.
Thank you, sir. Any more follow-ups on the comments? Okay.
I have one.
Go right ahead, sir.
I'll be here next week.
Yes, sir. We'll go items not on the agenda for the city council. Councilman Miller? You didn't have anything earlier. Leave it alone.
I'll wait till next week.
Yes, sir. Vice Mayor?
Yes, so as a part of the contract that council approved to purchase the land in Town Center, we have a due diligence period. I would ask for consensus from council to have an outside consultant or entity do that. I don't think our staff has the bandwidth, and being that it's a very high dollar purchase, a lot of land, this is a very complicated land purchase. I think that we need to hire a third party who is specialized in this type of diligence to ensure it's done correctly. So I'd ask for consensus to give staff direction to move in that direction with regards to that due diligence.
Thank you.
I agree.
I would support
Yeah.
that.
Everybody?
Especially with, we don't want any surprises.
Correct.
Okay, so, and also, city manager, if you
Got it,
take
sir.
care of that, and also specifically on the entitlements, because I've got two different lists of remaining entitlements, one from Mr. Miller and then one from Mr. Zobler. So, not wrong, different, Attorney Miller, I'm sorry. But anyway, I'd like to know, I want to be very specific on the remaining entitlements.
Yes, sir.
And for the record, all the entitlements come with the purchase.
Yes, sir. I'll be working with community development today to get those kicked off. And if you could just ensure that I get that info so that we can make sure that package is addressed.
I have one.
Yes.
I also have a question on the purchase.
Oh, go right ahead.
of the land. I'm working it. I'm through
Oh.
people.
Okay. Any comments? Not on the agenda? Closing comments? You're good? Councilman Gambaro?
I made mine.
Okay, Mr. Attorney? Mr. City Manager?
No, sir.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.